information has been available but hidden from us for obvious reasons. And oh, yeah, another disclaimer. More than likely, I will butcher some of these names as some of them are Spanish and I don't speak Spanish, or at least well. So I would try my best to pronounce these names and terms the best way I can. So without further ado, I'm going to shut my trap and get on with the video. Slaves from Asia were traded in a smaller but nevertheless influential trade. Thousands of slaves from the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia traveled to Mexico on the Manila galleon ships during the late 16th and 17th centuries. Juan Nunez, a slave from Calicut, India, who belonged to Fray Juan de Zumarraga, the first bishop of New Spain, was one of the first Asians to be reported in Mexico. He was brought from Spain to work as the bishop's cook and was emancipated in Zumarraga's will on June 2nd, 1548. Regular immigration, on the other hand, did not begin until 1565 with the creation of the Manila Acapulco Galleon, which lasted until 1815, which economically connected Asia, the Americas, and Europe together. In exchange for the New World silver, the Melagalan or Nayo de China or Nayo de Acapulco transported porcelain, silk, ivory, spices, and a plethora of other exotic commodities from China to Mexico. It is estimated that up to one third of the silver mined in New Spain and Peru was exported to the Far East. The priceless Asian merchandise were transported back across the Pacific via the Philippines, colonized by Spain in the late 15th century, to Acapulco on Mexico's west coast. They then traveled across Mexico by land to Spain. Much of the porcelain and carved ivory, on the other hand, remained in the Americas and in many cases impacted artists working there. The impact of the galleon trade is most visible in Mexican ceramics. However, some of the patterned garments of the Guatemalan sculptures, whose face also showed the subtle influence of Asian ivory carvings, may have been inspired by Chinese silk designs. The realization that Christopher Columbus had fallen short of his goal of reaching China put a temporary halt to efforts to unite East and West. This changed after Ferdinand Magellan's relatively successful voyage to the Spice Islands via America, demonstrating that Europeans could sail westward rather than around Africa to reach Asia's riches. After seeing the Pacific Ocean, conquistador Hernan Cortez wrote to King Charles V proposing to supply ships on Mexico's western coast to continue his explorations. His efforts, like an ill fated expedition in 1541, were in vain. Despite these failures, the allure persisted, so Philip II backed another attempt, this time led by Miguel Lopez de Legazpi, who succeeded in establishing a Spanish colony in the Philippines in 1565. On this voyage, Legazpi's interpreter was a Bengali named Geronimo Pacheco, who was originally from the Eastern Islands. This colonial classification of Asians should not be confused with Chino, a casta term used in New Spain to describe people of mixed ancestry, primarily African and American Indian. He arrived in Mexico by the way of Spain and was one of the first Chinos to live there. Notably, the thousands of other Asians who were sent to Mexico in the aftermath of this expedition had a less circuitous journey, as Legazpi's pilot discovered a return route across the Pacific in 1565. Previous voyages had circumnavigated the globe. The Manila Galleon, which connected the economies of Asia and Spanish America for the next 250 years, began with this first voyage from the Philippines to Mexico. The name Manila Galleon refers to the trade route that ran between the ports of Manila and Acapulco, as well as the ships that plied the Pacific yearly. The Royal Treasury funded the galleon infrastructure to support the outlying colony, whose economy was based on exporting Chinese goods to the New World in exchange for silver. The crown intended to regulate the trade, but the government enforcement was lax at the local level, resulting in widespread contraband. The Manila galleon was supposed to be two ships, each weighing 300 tons, carrying merchandise worth 250,000 pesos on the way to Mexico and 500,000 silver pesos or bullion on the way back, according to the permiso, government permission. Westward ships on average weighed 1,000 tons and returned with 2 million silver pesos. On both sides of the ocean, ship registries were routinely falsified in order for the Manila galleon to embark with as much cargo as possible. The smuggled cargo included slaves from the Philippines. From the end of the 16th to the beginning of the 17th century, the Manila galleon served as a transport vessel for the Trans-Pacific slave trade. The slave trade on the galleons was based on a large and diverse slave market in Manila, where Mexico bound merchants bought their slaves. Many of the slaves were foreigners who had been brought to the Philippines by Portuguese traders from as far as India. Others were indigenous to islands in the Philippines under direct Spanish control, as well as nearby islands populated mostly by Muslims who opposed colonization. We can estimate that the majority of slaves came from present day India is 39%, specifically the Malabar Coast and Bengal, based on demographic data for 190 people. Slaves from the present day countries of Indonesia, Japan, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, and a few from China were supplied in smaller numbers by the Portuguese. The Philippines was the other major region of origin, with Manila accounting for the majority of slaves. However, as with the Atlantic slave trade, sale deeds frequently listed the embarkation point rather than the slave's birthplace, so we can't be certain of their provenance. Significantly, after the Portuguese went to war with Spain and were thus barred from disembarking in Manila in the 1640s, the number of foreign slaves shipped decreased, while the export of indigenous slaves increased. While the Portuguese influx of foreign slaves dwindled, the Manila galleon traders were increasingly forced to rely on local supply. Due to the Philippines' native maritime culture, Filipinos were also pressed into service as sailors. When Mexico revolted against Spain in 1565, hundreds of Filipino mariners jumped ship in Mexico to flee the brutality of their Spanish masters, and some migrated to East Louisiana. As early as 1765, Filipino settlements were established in Louisiana. The early Filipinos were all men who intermarried with local women, including Indian women. By 1619, the Manila Galleon crews were almost entirely made up of Filipino native sailors. During the voyages, many of them died as a result of harsh treatment and hazardous conditions. In addition, many of the galleons were old, overloaded, and in need of repair. A law passed in 1608 that limited Filipino sailors geared to ropa necesaria, which consisted of a single pair of breeches, resulting in a large number of Filipino sailors dying from exposure. Because of these circumstances, King Philip III signed a law in 1620 requiring merchants to provide proper clothing to native crew members. Many Filipino sailors deserted as soon as they arrived in Acapulco during this time. Only 5 Filipino crew members remained for the return voyage, according to Sebastian de Paida, captain of the galleon Espiritu Santo, who complained to the king in 1619. The sailors that had deserted, these sailors settled in Mexico and married Mexicans, even if some had previously married in the Philippines, especially since their skills in the production of tuba, coconut wine, were in high demand by wine merchants in Colima. Caterina de Cejuan also known as Mira, an Indian girl captured by the Portuguese and sold in slavery in Manila. She arrived in New Spain and quickly gained a reputation for her religious piety, eventually becoming known as the China Plobana. Before disappearing in the second half of the 19th century, the Chana Plobana, or San, was considered the traditional style of dress for women in Mexico, despite the fact that it only existed in a few urban zones in the country's middle and southeast. Plobanas are Ploba women. Catarina de Sawan is credited with designing the Chana Plobana dress, though it undoubtedly incorporates elements from the many cultures that coexisted in New Spain during the 3 centuries of Spanish rule. The number of Asian slaves during the colonial era is estimated to be between 40,000 and 120,000. Mexico received approximately half a million Europeans and 250,000 Africans during the colonial era. Over generations, the Asian population was absorbed into the general mestizo population, much like a large portion of Mexico's black population had been. The assimilation of Asians into the indigenous population helped to facilitate miscegenation. Asian slaves could claim they were wrongfully enslaved if they were recognized as a part of indigenous peoples who were legally protected from chattel slavery. Asians did, however, carry some rights that most indigenous peoples did not, such as the ability to carry a sword, dagger, or ride a horse in some cases. In the 1654 case of Marcos de Villanueva, arguing that his people helped quell a Sangli rebellion in Melilla. There are examples of Chinos proving their standing to authorities in order to carry arms. Others argued that when transporting goods through remote areas, carrying arms was a requirement. The samurai who remained in Mexico as envoys from Japan were the most privileged Asians. During the 19th century, many Chinese and Filipinos immigrated to the United States to work on plantations and railroads. According to modern descendants, Hirilio Hongo, a Chinese farm worker who arrived in Louisiana via Cuba in 1867, married Azeli Phillip, an Indian woman. Other Filipino and Chinese workers who stayed in the United States were adopted by Indian tribes and married indigenous women. Their descendants are classified as Indians. Juan Esteban Rodriguez, a population genetics graduate student at Mexico's National Laboratory of Genomics for Biodiversity, had intended to research a recent thread in the global tapestry, Mexican ancestry. Rodriguez grew up near the Mexican American border and wanted to see if he could pinpoint the genetic contribution of Chinese immigrants to the modern Mexican population. But when he looked for genetic variants more common in Asian populations in a database of 500 Mexican genomes assembled for biomedical research, he discovered something unexpected. Although some people in northern Mexico had significant Asian ancestry, they were far from alone. Rodriguez discovered that up to 10% of the people in Guerrero, a Pacific coastal state nearly 2,000 kilometers south of the US border, had Asian ancestry, which was significantly higher than most Mexicans. He discovered that their genomes were most closely related to populations from the Philippines and Indonesia when he compared them to those of people in Asia today. The Trans Pacific slave trade was a phenomenon that occurred in the late 16th and early 17th centuries and was dependent on a number of factors. To begin, the Spanish Empire had to expand as far as Asia in order for slave traders to have a base from which to procure slaves and organize their sales abroad. Foremost, there needed to be a means of transport, which was provided by the Manila galleon infrastructure. Consequently, the international political environment had to allow Portuguese traders with access to distant regions to deliver slaves for this transoceanic market. Furthermore, the local colonial government in the Philippines had to make it easier for foreign and indigenous slaves to be exported, which included ignoring the enslavement of Spanish vassals and ignoring contraband. Mexican officials had to be equally deceitful. Sadly, the crown had to allow the slave trade on some level, acknowledging that the colonies needed more labor and that such trade could generate significant profits. Do you think Asians being adopted and seen as indigenous affect how we view American Indian identity today?
Of
Why
course.
were there Asians being granted indigenous status with little or no indigenous ancestry so easily? Why aren't we being taught this in school? Comment below your thoughts. Be sure to purchase my book, Discovering Genealogy, to learn more on how to research your genealogy, Indigenous American ancestry, and of course, to learn more about Asian slaves in the Americas.
So peace to everyone that has come in. Um, Wanted to definitely get into some important information on the blending of the races. That video just kind of hit it off. I talked to you guys a lot about that transatlantic slave trade, and literally this video just popped up in my timeline, and she was talking about the entire thing. So I'm like, wow, this is perfect. I'm going to get into this because I keep hearing these people talk about Indian being a misnomer, and these names that they keep saying. It's so weird that they think that Indian means nothing when Indian is everything in the law. Indian is everything when it comes to allodial title, mineral rights, land rights, regulations, and everything, so on and so forth. This is why I'm going to get into the explanation of this. We're going to start with the two acts that are in relation to Indian affairs. This is all relation to the law in Indian law and what was going on with, let's go.
Number 33. 2 Acts 9 Relation to Indian Affairs. Act to regulate trade and intercourse with Ayodhya tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers. Section 1. Be it
Listen to that
enacted by the
again.
Number 33. 2 Acts 9 Relation to Indian Affairs. Act to regulate trade and intercourse with
To
Ayodhya
regulate
tribes, and
trade
to preserve
and intercourse with Indian tribes. To regulate trade and intercourse with Indian tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers that they were creating, right? Now let's look at this. We're looking at the Indian Bureau laws and relations and etc. Laws, the laws and relations and etc. to the Indian Bureau. Now listen, you guys see this says the Indian Bureau, which is now the Bureau of Land Management. Keep that in mind. 1850, the Office of Indian Affairs, the United States Office of Indian Affairs that was created. Government Printing Office of 1869, right? I want you guys to get into this and listen very closely.
Number 33. 2 Acts 9 Relation to Indian Affairs. Act to regulate trade and intercourse with Ayodhya tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers. Section 1. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled, that all that part of the United States west of the Mississippi, and not within the states of Missouri and Louisiana, or the territory of Arkansas, and, also, that part, OT the United States east of the Mississippi River, and not within any state to which the Indian title lies not been extinguished,
Indian
for the
title.
purposes of this act, be taken and deemed to be the Indian country. Sector 2.
Indian title, right, that had not been extinguished within any state in which the Indian title had not been extinguished. For it to be extinguished, that means it was in existence prior, right? Keep that in mind.
And be it further enacted, that no person shall be permitted to trade with any of the Indians, in the Indian country, without a license therefore from a superintendent of Indian affairs, or Indian agent, or subagent, which license shall be issued for a term not exceeding 2 years for the tribes east of the Mississippi, and not exceeding 3 years for the tribes west of that river. and the person applying for such license shall give bond in a penal sum not exceeding $5,000, with one or more sureties, to be approved by the person issuing the same, conditioned that such person will faithfully observe all the laws and regulations made for the government of trade and intercourse with the Indian * tribes, and in no respect violate the same. And the superintendent of the district shall have power to revoke and cancel the same, whenever the person licensed shall, in his opinion, have transgressed any of the laws or regulations provided for the government of trade and intercourse with the Indian tribes, or that it would be improper to permit him to remain in the Indian country. And no trade with the said tribes shall be carried on within their boundary, except at certain suitable and convenient places, to be designated from time to time by the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents, and to be inserted in the license. And it shall be the duty of the persons granting or revoking such licenses forthwith to report the same to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs for his approval or disapproval. Sector 3. And be it further enacted, that any superintendent or agent may refuse an application for a license to trade if he is satisfied that the applicant is a person of bad character, or that it W7 old be improper to permit him to reside in the Indian county, or if a license, previously granted to such applicant, has
Peace,
been
Grey Wolf.
revoked, or a forfeiture of his bond decreed. But an appeal may be had from the agent or the superintendent to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, and the President of the United States shall be authorized, whenever in his opinion the public interest may require the same, to prohibit the introduction of goods, or of any particular article, into the country belonging to any Indian tribe, and to direct all licenses to trade with such tribe to be revoked, and all applications therefore to be rejected, and no trader to any other tribe shall, so long as such prohibition may continue, trade with any Indians of, or for, the tribe against which such prohibition is issued. Sector 4. And be it further enacted, that any person, other than an Indian, WRLIO shall attempt to reside in the Indian country as a trader, or to introduce goods, or to trade therein without such license, shall forfeit all merchandise offered for sale to the Indians, or found in its possession,
See how
and
they
shall,
cut
moreover,
people off
forfeit
from
and pay
being
the
able
sum
to
of
trade?
$500.
All of this going into trying to cut them off from being able to trade. It is there you go.
To introduce goods, or to trade therein without such license, shall forfeit all merchandise offered for sale to the Indians, or found in its possession, and shall, moreover, forfeit and pay the sum of $500. Sector 5. And be it further enacted, that no license to trade with the Indians shall be granted to any persons except citizens of the United States, provided that the President shall be authorized to allow the employment of foreign boatmen and interpreters, under such regulations as he may prescribe. Sector 6. And be it further enacted, that if a foreigner shall go into the Indian country without a passport from the War Department, the superintendent, agent, or sub-agent of Indian Affairs, or from the officer of the United States commanding the nearest military post on the frontiers, or shall remain intentionally therein after the expiration of such passport, he shall forfeit and pay the sum of $1,000, and such passport shall express the object of spell person, the time he is allowed to remain, and the route he is to travel. Sector 7. And be it further enacted, that if any person, other than an Indian, shall, within the Indian country, purchase or receive of any Indian, in the way of barter, trade, or pledge, a gun, trap, or other article commonly used in hunting, any instrument of husbandry or cooking utensils, of the kind commonly obtained by the Indians in their intercourse with the white people, or any other article of clothing except skins or furs, he shall forfeit and pay the sum of $50. Seconds. 8. And be it further enacted, that if any person, other than an Indian, shall, within the limits of any tribe with whom the United States shall have existing treaties, hunt, or trap, or take and destroy any pelt rise, or game, except for subsistence, in the Indian country, such person shall forfeit the sum of $500 and forfeit all the traps, guns, and ammunition in his possession, used or procured to be used for that purpose, and pelt rise so taken. Sector 9. And be it further enacted, that if any person shall drive, or otherwise convey, any stock of horses, mules, or cattle, to range and feed on any land belonging to any Indian or Indian tribe, without the consent of such tribe, such person shall forfeit the sum of $1 for each animal of such stock. Sector 10. And be it further enacted, that
$1.
the superintendent
That's
of Indian
all?
affairs, and Indian agents, and sub-agents, shall have authority to remove from the Indian country all persons found
Halito
therein
says.
contrary to law, and the President of the United States is authorized to direct the military force to be employed in such removal. Sector 11. And be it further enacted, that if any person shall make a settlement on any lots belonging, secured, or granted by treaty with the United States, to any Indian tribe, or shall survey, or shall attempt to survey such lands, or designate any of the boundaries, by marking trees.
Now, you guys know this is the process of squatting now, right? This is a process that you can even use legally. People kind of frown against it, but when it comes to the law of the land, right? All the land being of the land of the free, it's a free land. It doesn't belong to anyone. No one owns this particular land except the people of the soil in the areas that have allodial titles to particular lands. No foreigner has rights or ownership to any land. This is how they are able to set up with squatting. You understand, they're explaining it right here. The lands of designating any of the boundaries by marking trees or otherwise, such offender shall forfeit and pay the sum of $1,000. They're threatening them about setting up in the land that they have been doing for eons. This is so absurd when you even think about it, but just keep listening.
Or otherwise, such offender shall forfeit and pay the sum of $1,000. And it shall, moreover, be lawful for the President of the United States to take such measures, and to employ such military force as he may judge necessary, to remove from the lands as aforesaid any such person as aforesaid. Sector 12. And be it further enacted, that no purchase, grant, lease, or other conveyance of lands, or of any title or claim thereto, from any Indian nation or tribe of Indians, shall be of any validity in law or equity, unless the same be made by treaty or convention entered into pursuant to the Constitution. And if any person, not employed under the authority of the United States, shall attempt to negotiate such treaty or convention, directly or indirectly, to treat with any such nation or tribe of Indians for the title or purchase of any lands by them held or claimed, such person shall forfeit and pay $1,000, pro J vided. Nevertheless, that it shall be lawful for the agent or agents of any state who may be present at any treaty held with Indians under the authority of the United States,
You hear
in
this?
the presence aid with the approbation of the Commissioner or Commissioners of the United States appointed to hold the same, to propose to, and adjust with, the Indians, the compensation to be made for their claim to lands within such state, which shall be extinguished by treaty.
I want y'all to
State
hear
who
that
may,
part
or
again.
convention, directly or indirectly, to treat with any such nation or tribe of Indians for the title or purchase of any lands by them held or claimed, such person shall forfeit and pay $1,000, pro J vided. Nevertheless, that it shall be lawful for the agent or agents of any state who may be present at any treaty held with Indians under the authority of the United States, in the presence aid with the approbation of the Commissioner or Commissioners of the United States appointed to hold the same, to propose to, and adjust with, the Indians, the compensation to be made for their claim to lands within such state, which shall be extinguished by treaty. Sector 13. And he it further enacted, that if any citizen or other person, residing within the United States or the territory thereof, shall send any talk, speech, message, or letter, to any Indian nation, tribe, chief, or individual, with an intent to produce a contravention or infraction of any treaty or other law of the United States, or to disturb the peace and tranquility of the United States, he shall forfeit and pay the sum of $2,000.
It says it says any person, right? That that's a court. Keep in mind. It said any citizen, right? Any citizen or other person residing in the United States. A citizen or a person. These are people that are entitled to the land, right? Because a person is a corp. Keep that in mind. They're talking about a corp. Really? This thing stopped that quick. It's so annoying. We started over. Hope I didn't mean to do that.
Or convention, directly or indirectly, state which shall be extinguished by treaty. Sector 13. And he had further enacted, that if any citizen or other person, residing within the United States or the territory thereof, shall send any talk, speech, message, or letter, to any Indian nation, tribe, chief, or individual, with an intent to produce a contravention or infraction of any treaty or other law of the United States, or to disturb the peace and tranquility of the United States, he shall forfeit and pay the sum of $2,000. Sector 14. And he had further enacted, that if any citizen or other person shall carry or deliver any such talk, message, speech, or letter, to or from any Indian nation, tribe, chief, or individual, from or to any person or persons whatsoever residing within the United States, or from or to any subject, citizen, or agent of any foreign power or state, knowing the contents thereof, he shall forfeit and pay the sum of $1,000.
Sounds like tax to me.
Sector 15. And he had further enacted,
that's right,
that if any citizen or other person
people keep playing
residing
around
or living among the Indians, or elsewhere within the territory of the United States, shall carry on a correspondence, by letter, or otherwise, with any foreign nation or power, with an intent to induce such foreign nation or power to excite any Indian nation, tribe, chief, or individual, to war against the United States, or to the violation of any existing treaty, or in case any citizen or other person shall alienate, or attempt to alienate, the confidence of any Indian or Indians from the government of the United States, he shall forfeit the sum of $1,000.
Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this nonsense?
10. And he had further enacted, that where, in the commission, by a white person, of any crime, offense, or misdemeanor within the Indian country, the property
but these
of
people want to keep telling you that you ain't Indian. They want to tell you ain't no Indian, you ain't no Indian. That's a misnomer. That's this, blah, 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 blah. Listen. You may not be an Indian, as they say, using it as a individual, right? But in the East state, you are an Indian because it's what? Tied to the tribes. All the tribes fall under Indian. Let's make this make sense where people want to keep telling you you're not Indian, where people want to keep going against Indian. It sounds like some agent shit, like literally. I'm so tired of this. I don't understand why people are playing with people's mind to act like now I'm being told that I'm pseudo. I'm pseudo. I'm teaching pseudo information. They really must not pay attention to my channel. Like this is real crazy.
Friendly Indian is taken, injured, or destroyed, and a conviction is had for such crime, offense, or misdemeanor. The person so convicted shall be sentenced to pay to such friendly Indian to whom the property must belong, or whose person may be injured, a sum equal to twice any just value of the property so taken, injured, or destroyed. And if such offender shall be unable to pay a sum at least equal to the just value or amount, whatever such payment shall fall short of the same shall be paid out of the treasury of the United States, provided that no such Indian shall be entitled to any payment out of the treasury of the United States for any such property, if he, or any of the nation to which he belongs, shall have sought private revenge, or attempted to obtain satisfaction by any force or violence.
Do you hear this? Do anybody hear this? Like, are y'all understanding what's being said here? Do you guys understand that they're telling them by you trying to stand up for your rights, by you, saying, hey, you guys are doing us wrong. Anybody that comes and helps them, it's a violation. Y'all can't get anything going into any payments from the treasury, all of that stuff. All that's going to be stopped if y'all trying to do anything to go against the government that's being set up against y'all, that's formulated against y'all. So once you go against us, now you get nothing. You get cut off. We're taking your land. We're taking your... Is y'all hearing this? Come on, man.
Provided also that if such offender cannot be apprehended and brought to trial, the amount of such property shall be paid out of the treasury as aforesaid.
Messed up.
Sector 17. And he had further enacted that if any Indian or Indians belonging to any tribe in amity with the United States shall, within the Indian country, take or destroy the property of any person lawfully within such country,
hold on, go back.
Or shall pass from the Indian country, the amount of such property shall be paid out of the treasury as aforesaid. Sector 17. And he had further enacted that if any Indian or Indians belonging to any tribe in amity with the United States
tribe in amity with the United States shall what?
Within the Indian country, take or destroy the property of any person lawfully within such country, or shall pass from the Indian country into any state or territory inhabited by citizens of the United States, and there take, steal, or destroy any horse, horses, or other property belonging to any citizen or inhabitant of the United States. Such citizen or inhabitant, his representative, attorney, or agent, may make application to the proper superintendent, agent, or subagent, who, upon being furnished with the necessary documents and proofs, shall, under the direction of the President, make application to the nation or tribe to which said Indian or Indians shall belong for satisfaction. And
so if they come, you come back and say, hey, get off my land. I'm about move, y'all stop trying to take our land. Y'all get back. We about to fight back. Move back. If you do that, that's a problem. That's like literally a problem. Are y'all hearing this? Any property or jurisdiction that says who told them, and who are these people? Y'all keep hearing them talk about all these different agents or whatever. How many of these agents we still got around? Like, are they descendants of agents? Like all these people that playing these games with us, manipulating, using, abusing. You can't fight for your rights. If you fight for your rights, you're gonna get killed. If you try to do this, we're gonna take your land. If you do, I mean, literally, do y'all hear this crap? Some of this stuff it's so frustrating to me, and I think that's why I get so emotional when I have to talk to people and they're playing these games and manipulation in the minds of our people. Man, let's go, y'all.
If such nation or tribe shall neglect or refuse to make satisfaction in a reasonable time, not exceeding 12 months, it shall be the duty of such superintendent, agent, or subagent, to make return of his doings to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, that such further steps may be taken as shall be proper, in the opinion of the President, to obtain satisfaction for the injury, and, in the meantime, in respect to the property so taken, stolen, or destroyed, the United States guarantee to the party so injured an eventual indemnification, provided that if such injured party, his representative, attorney, or agent, shall, in any way, violate any of the provisions of this act, by seeking or attempting to obtain private satisfaction or revenge, he shall forfeit all claim upon the United States for such indemnification.
Don't try to get no revenge now. Now we done stole your stuff. We done killed most of your people. We done shut you out. We done drowned you out. We done burned you out. We done moved you to another area. Now if y'all want to exert any rights, you hear this? How dare you try to exert rights? We're going to come down with the long hammer of the law on you that we created, that overruled your governance and your rules and everything that was set up, right?
Also, that unless such claim shall be presented within 3 years after the commission of the injury, the same shall be barred. And if the nation or tribe to which such Indian may belong receive an annuity from the United States, such claim shall, at the next payment of the annuity, be deducted therefrom and paid to the party injured, and if no annuity is payable to such nation or tribe, then the amount of the claim shall be paid from the Treasury of the United States, provided that nothing herein contained shall prevent the legal apprehension and punishment of any Indians having so offended.
Punishment.
Sector 18.
Offended the
And be
United
it further
States.
enacted
Wow.
that the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents within their respective districts be and are hereby authorized and empowered to take depositions of witnesses touching any depredations within the purview of the two preceding sections of this act, and to administer an oath to the deponents. Sector 19. And b. It further enacted that it shall be the duty of the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents to endeavor to procure the arrest and trial of all Indians accused of committing any crime, offense, or misdemeanor, and all other persons who may have committed crimes or offenses within any state or territory, and have fled into the Indian country, either by demanding the same to the chiefs of the proper tribe,
yeah, let's go
or
back
by
on that
such
part
other
one more
means.
time. I'm sorry,
Sector
guys.
19. And b.
I gotta
Sector
go to
18. And be it further enacted that the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents within their respective districts be and are hereby authorized and empowered to take depositions of witnesses touching any depredations within the purview of the two preceding sections of this act, and to administer an oath to the deponents. Sector 19.
P7.
And b. It further enacted that it shall be the duty of the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents to endeavor to procure the arrest and trial of all Indians accused of committing any crime, offense, or misdemeanor, and all other persons who may have committed crimes or offenses within any state or territory, and have fled into the Indian
the disrespect
country,
of it all,
either by demanding the same to the chiefs of the proper tribe, or by such other means as the president may authorize, and the president may direct the military force of the United States to be employed in the apprehension of such Indians, and also in preventing or terminating hostilities between any of the Indian tribes.
Yeah, I remember the story I read you guys, right, where it showed you how the army came in and was helping them to take over their land. They was moving them into the corners, helping the people barge them into dead end areas where they could jump them and dismember them, and they were taking pieces of their limbs and using them for souvenirs, and the army was a part of that. Remember? So this is nothing new to us. We already knew this part, but let's hear it again. Listen again.
Either Sector 19 and b. It further enacted that it shall be the duty of the superintendents, agents, and sub-agents to endeavor to procure the arrest and trial of all Indians accused of committing any crime, offense, or misdemeanor, and all other persons who may have committed crimes or offenses within any state or territory, and have fled into the Indian country, either by demanding the same to the chiefs of the proper tribe, or by such other means as the president may authorize, and the president may direct the military force of the United States to be employed in the apprehension of such Indians, and also in preventing or terminating hostilities between any of the Indian tribes. Sector 20.f and be it further enacted that if any person shall sell X** amended as follows by Act approved February 28, 1859, Section 8. And be it further enacted, that so much of the Act entitled an Act to regulate trade intercourse with the Indian tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers, approved June 30, 1834, as provides that the United States shall make indemnification out of the Treasury for property taken or destroyed, in certain cases, by Indians trespassing on white men as described, and be it further enacted, that so much of the Act entitled an Act to regulate trade intercourse with the Indian tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers, approved June 30, 1834, as provides that the United States shall make indemnification out of the Treasury for property taken or destroyed.
The United States shall make indemnification out of the Treasury for property taken or destroyed in certain cases, by the Indians trespassing on white men as described in said act. Do y'all hear this? When I tell y'all, I can't help but be emotional about all of this, guys. I try to keep my peace, and I'm very good with it, I think. But it really upsets me when there's people playing around with this shit, like, for real.
Certain cases.
For real.
by Indians trespassing on white men as described in said act. B. And the same is hereby * repealed, provided, however, that nothing herein contained shall be so construed as to impair or destroy the obligation of the Indians to make indemnification out of the annuities as provided in said act.
Oh, y'all gonna pay us back for fighting
as
back.
follows by act approved February 13th, 1862, that the 20th section of the act to regulate trade and intercourse with the Indian tribes, and to preserve peace on the frontiers, approved June 30th, 1834, b. And the same is hereby amended, so as to read as follows, to wit. Sector 20. And be it further enacted, that if any person shall sell, exchange, give, barter or dispose of any spirit-use liquor or wine to any Indian under the charge of any Indian superintendent or Indian agent appointed by the United States, or shall introduce, or attempt to introduce, any spirit-use liquor or wine into the Indian country, such person, on con, change, or give, barter, or dispose of, any spirit-use liquor or wine to an Indian, in the Indian country, such person shall forfeit and pay the sum OL $500, and at any person shall introduce, or attempt to introduce, any spirit-use liquor or wine into the Indian country, except such supplies as shall be necessary for the officers of the United States and troops of the service, under the direction of the War Department.
Now, keeping in mind, this was after they had a law put in effect against the ardent spirits, because all of the Indians, a lot of the Indians were being reported that, hey, they're getting drunk, they're turning the lands over. So there were big issues in the courts with this. They were having so many trials and cases. I think I showed you guys a few of these last week. They were showing, so they had so many cases and trials because they were stealing the land from them, basically get them drunk. Oh yeah, friend, let's get drunk. Get them drunk and stuff. Hey, sign this over. And then been and stole their land. So they were having a lot of this going on. So they had to put a law in the fact that, hey, y'all can't do this. Y'all can't be stealing the land. We already stealing it. Y'all doing this. Y'all causing too many problems because now we got court cases, blah, blah, blah. They had to put a stop to it because it was exposing their shit.
Person shall forfeit and pay a sum not exceeding $300, and if any superintendent of Indian affairs, Indian agent, subagent, or commanding officer of a military post, has reason to suspect, or is informed, that any white person or Indian is about to introduce, or lies introduced, any spirit-use liquor or wine into the Indian country, in violation of the provisions of this section, it shall be lawful for such superintendent, Indian agent, or subagent, or military officer, agreeably to such regulations as may be established by the President of the United States, to cause the boats, stores, packages, and places of deposit of such person to be searched, and if any such spirit-use liquor or wine is found, the goods, boats, packages, and peltries of such persons shall be seized and delivered FO the proper officer, and shall be proceeded against by libel, in the proper court, and forfeited, one half to the use of the informer, and the other half to the use of the United States, and if such person is a traitor, his license shall be revoked, and his bond put in suit. And it shall, moreover, be lawful for any person in the service of the United States, or for any Indian, to take and destroy any ardent spirits or wine found in the Indian country, excepting military supplies, as mentioned in the section. Sector 21. And be it further enacted, that if any person whatever shall, within the limits of the Indian country, set up or continue any distillery for manufacturing ardent spirits, he shall forfeit and pay a penalty of $1,000, and it shall be the
That's a
duty
lot
of
of
the
money back
superintendent
then,
of
guys.
Indian affairs,
That's a
Indian
lot.
agent, or subagent, within the limits of whose agency the same shall be set up or continued, forthwith to destroy and break up the same, and it shall be lawful to employ the military force of the United States in executing that duty. Sector 22.
See, this is going to show you guys what I was just speaking about the trials. They were having all these trials about property. As I said, it was causing a lot of attention because these people were getting them drunk and having them sign it. So listen to this part.
It further enacted that in all trials about the right of property, in which an Indian may be a party on one side and a white person on the other, the burden of proof shall rest upon the white person, whenever the Indian shall make out a presumption of title in him self from the fact of previous possession or ownership. Sector 23. And be it further enacted, that it shall be lawful for the military force of the United States to be employed, in such manner eviction thereof before the proper district court of the United States, shall be imprisoned for a period not exceeding 2 years, and shall be fined not more than $300, provided, however, that it shall be a sufficient defense to any charge of introducing, or attempting to introduce, liquor into the Indian country if it be proved to be done by order. DF the War Department, or of any officer duly authorized thereto by the War
I want
Department.
to read more, but I want to get
And
into
if any
this next book.
superintendent
I'm
of
going to
Indian
drop this for
affairs,
y'all in
Indian
the
agent,
chat, so
or
y'all can
sub-agent,
definitely check this
or
out.
commanding officer of a military post,
I
has
want y'all
reason
to
to
see this
suspect,
other
or is
document
informed,
we finna get into.
that any white person or Indian is about to introduce, or
Listen.
has introduced,
Mhm.
any spirit use liquor or wine into the Indian count. Try, in violation of the provisions of this section, it shall be lawful for such superintendent, agent, sub-agent, or commanding officer to cause the boats, stores, packages, wagons, sleds, and places of deposit
y'all
of
see
such
this.
persons to be searched, and if any such liquor is found therein, the same, together with the boats, teams, wagons, and sleds used in conveying the same, and also the goods, packages, and peltries of such person, shall be seized and delivered to the proper officer, and shall be proceeded against by libel in the proper court, and forfeited 1/2 to the informer, and the other half to the use of the United States, and if such person be a traitor, his license shall be revoked and his bond put in suit. And it shall moreover be lawful for any person in the service of the United States.
And his bond, if his license shall be revoked and his bond put in suit. Remember, we talked about the bondsmen, how these bondsmen were used, and they would be able to perpetrate certain acts and doing things and using business, so on and so forth. These were bondsmen, and they said their license would be revoked. These are businesses, corporations.
For any Indian, to take and destroy any ardent spirits or wine found in the Indian country, except such as may be introduced therein by the War Department, and in all cases arising under this act, Indians shall be competent witnesses.
You hear that? Indians shall be competent witnesses. It says, except such as may be introduced therein by the War Department. So the War Department can do it. They don't want nobody else to do it now, but the War Department can do it. They can introduce the ardent spirit because they the ones they want to be able to get the land. See, y'all can't do it. If y'all do it, y'all might come intercede. We're a whole section where you trying to take a little plot and we want the whole area, and y'all gonna come intercede. So if y'all do that, that's why y'all gonna pay that fine, because y'all interfering with the plan. See, they got a hot plan, right? They want to do what they want to do. Let's get into this next document. So let's get more into what's going on. Not only the lands, right? We just seen what was going on, how they were taking the land, so on and so forth. Let's look at these public lands on shore, federal, and the Indian The Indian mineral rights in lands of the United States. The Indian mineral rights in lands of the United States. We're not talking about native minerals. Do anyone see native minerals anywhere? Have you seen it in any of the documents we ever read? Not just today, but anytime. Like out of the thousand, I think within the last 6 months, I had to have gone over at least 600 books with y'all. Y'all might not even believe that, but I promise you, if y'all go through the videos I did in the last 6 months, we done went through at least 600. That's a minimum. I'm just taking a quick guess. We done went through at least 600 books. Now, out of all the books we've been through that anyone has observed from any of these videos, tell me one time y'all seen anything when we talking about any of these documents with the land, the sanctionings, any of these things. Do y'all ever see anything that say native? Anybody ever seen native? Who's seen native? Come on now. I'll pay you if you've seen native. Let's go. Let's get into this. So these public lands are on the federal and the Indian minerals, right? On the lands, right? Right. Appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you so much. I can't tell from some people's perspective. They keep pressing down on the womb of the woman, bro. It's so sad and disgusting. I mean, it's bad, but we got to make sure that we know the truth. I don't care what nobody say. Y'all know your own discernment. Y'all can't let nobody convince y'all or tell y'all nothing that is not the truth. You cannot let anyone tell you something that changes or sways your mind to think something different than what the facts truly are, right? Come on now, it's in your face. Public lands, the responsibility of the Bureau of Land Management. I told you guys it all goes back to the land management for the Indian lands. Just look at this land. Let me take my time because I want y'all to see. I just want y'all to see this. The categories of the land, guys, right? The BLM, surface of minerals, 264 million acres. That's just a small portion, believe it or not. It sounds like a lot, don't it? But when it comes to the whole entire America, that ain't nothing. That's like a drop in the bucket. Okay. Other federal lands, minerals, 380 million acres. All right. Now check this out. They said there are non-federal surface that include 58 million. A credit of split of a state federal minerals, a state. So who put them in a state? Who put the minerals in a state? Is that after going into statehood, into each state, they put the minerals into federal minerals for a state? Check this out. Indian trust lands. Wait a minute. Indian trust. What kind of trust? There's Indian trust. Wait a minute. Not Indian trust. You sure it's not a native trust? You sure it's not a Moor trust? You sure it's not, an Aboriginal trust? Not to say we not Aboriginal. We definitely are Aboriginal, but it tells you right here that the Indian minerals in the lands of who? The responsibility of the Land Management Bureau, right, is for who? The Indian trust lands. 56 million. So y'all know that's just a drop in the bucket. We talking about one little place except the mineral operations of the Osage. The Osage. We read that last week. The Osage mineral rights. Remember? It was talking about everything with them and how they went through, blah, 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 took their stuff, blah, 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 same thing. Everywhere, all the time with all the Indians. BLM administration boundaries. They got boundaries. Can you believe it? They ain't have boundaries with none of our stuff, but they got boundaries now. Okay. Of the approximately 700 million acres of federal mineral estate. How does the federal government have an estate? Make this shit make sense. About 165 million acres as of July 2000 have been withdrawn from mineral entry. What happened to the entries? Who withdrew them? Who took them out, removed them, so on and so forth. The leasing and the sale, except for valid existing rights. Valid, all of them would be valid and existing if they were created, right? Salable minerals, sand, gravel, basically all the responsibility of each of the federal services of the management agency, right? The map depicts only Indian, listen, the map depicts only Indian reservations, at least 23,000 acres in size. Not all Indian trust land, but it said Indian. It says Indian, guys, hold on. It's a Indian reservation. Well, why y'all ain't on the reservation? Who on the reservation? Native Americans. Well, why are they on the reservations? They are reserved in reservations, right? Because they are taking your place. They're in your place. These actors and these actresses, they just showed you they were kicking a lot of them off of the reservation not too long ago. See, a lot of these people aren't supposed to be there. So see, they pretended to be you. But in all actuality, they are under Indian trust. They're not under Native American trust. They're under Indian trust. And see, since y'all system failed, and since everything is coming to the surface, now you're going to have to try to release some of these lies y'all been doing. So y'all see, it says right here, this map depicts only Indian reservations, at least 23,000 acres. And it says not all are Indian trust lands. So there's a separation on some of these reservations. Some are under Indian trust land, and some of them are under just reservations. Oh, let's let y'all see the entirety of this. Just check it out. Interesting, right? Very interesting, right? Okay, let's go. Note, the federal lands in Alaska shown here include about 20 million acres of native state. They said native, y'all. Why do it say native when they start talking about the Alaskans? Give me a second. I gotta get this crap out of me. Okay, so listen. It says the Alaska show here include 20 million acres of native and state selected land. Why do you think it says they are native lands now when they're talking about Alaska? Because those are natives, right? So how is it how can it be Indian natives, they keep trying to say it's the same thing. They keep blending it. Oh, the same thing they keep doing like with the Moors, because they were a particular tribe. So now everybody was a Moor. So now these natives, everybody's a native, but it say Indian, but it's we natives. We natives because they want to say you're natives. Is that the new classification? Is that what happened? Is that what happened? Right, Eskimos, bro. Straight Eskimos. Like all of them. Like all of them. Just like we just showed in the video, them Chinos, right? The miscegenation, bringing in all the Chinese through the triangular slave trade over there, having those little people congregating, miscegenating, mixing each other, having all these mulattoes. Now the mulattoes come on to the land. Come on, y'all. Let's keep moving. Let me go down so y'all can get a little more understanding. All this land. Look at all this land, y'all. Look at all this Indian land, not native land. You see that where the native land is, Alaska, not none of the states, right? Keep that in mind. Stay moving so slow. We finna get to the read. I want to try and get to one other document, if I can. I got to make a call in a while, but I got a minute now. Let's look at this. Just look at it. Look. Federal mineral. How do y'all have federal anything? Y'all don't own nothing. How is this shit in your name? Who told the government to take over public lands, put it in trust up under the U.S. government so y'all can take our land? Who told y'all to do that? It don't belong to y'all. That's false. That's really fake. Let me just wait. Okay. Let's go. Okay. Keep moving. You see all this? Look. Then they got this one area talking about some Indian Trust land acreage. The Indian Trust land acreage in Appendix 18. But everything else is federal mineral. Look at that. Look. Federal mineral. The eastern states. Idaho federal mineral. What? How you got a mineral and y'all just a corporation that came in here taking over access to our stuff? Are you freaking crazy? Are you crazy? That's why it's locked up and y'all can't do nothing or access nothing without us. It's all under us. I think I want to pass this to get to, hold on guys. This is crazy. Okay, I want y'all to understand the title and use of the map. So we're gonna start here. I want to go a little further. Maybe I'll just do this book, focus on this, and going through some of the information on what you guys view. Let's get to it. We're gonna start right here on title and use of map.
Title and use of the map. The title of the map: public lands, onshore federal and Indian minerals in lands of U.S. responsibilities of Bureau of Land Management has been used to replace the title of the initial 1999 map, which appeared to cover minerals only, even though the BLM surface, the public land, was already shown in a separate color, yellow, in that map. This revised map title depicts the total geographic scope of BLM surface and mineral, federal and Indian, responsibilities. This national BLM map, instead of the old Western-only map, should be used for BLM budget presentation and submission, public outreach and briefings, as well as for internal purposes. Any regional/state presentation should tear from this national overview of BLM responsibilities. It is a useful tool to create understanding of BLM's mission, necessary coordination/cooperation with other entities, and to portray the magnitude and complexity of BLM's work and workloads. Together with BLM accomplishment documents such as the annual report and the public rewards from public lands, the American public can thus recognize and appreciate BLM's significant contribution to communities and the nation, for both current and future generations. This map also should be used as the base map to organize nationwide and statewide information in the BLM website, together with BLM accomplishment documents such as the annual report and the public rewards from public lands. The American public can thus recognize and appreciate BLM's significant contribution to communities and the nation,
You hear this?
for both current and future generations.
Are
This
they
map
nuts?
also should be used as the base map to organize
Yeah.
nationwide and statewide information in the BLM website, and this documentation should be accessible in conjunction with map display in the
I'll
website.
be back, guys. I gotta get me some ice.
Data presented in the map as the title implies. The map shows the public lands, 264 million acres, in yellow, other federal lands minerals, 380 million acres, in gray, non-federal surface, including 58 million acres of split estate federal mineral, in white, and Indian trust lands, 56 million acres. Except mineral operations for Osage minerals, in orange. The general location of these categories of lands are shown in the map corresponding to the colors in the legend, except the split estate federal minerals, which is part of the non-federal surface. 3 notes are made to further clarify the status of BLM federal and Indian mineral responsibilities. 1.
Ooh.
Of the approximately 700 million acres of federal mineral estate, about 165 million acres, as of July 2000, have been withdrawn from entry, leasing, and sale, except for valid existing rights. 2. Saleable minerals, e.g. sand and gravel, basically are the responsibility of each federal surface management agency. 3. The map depicts only Indian reservations at least 23,000 acres in size, not all Indian trust lands. The data sources and rationales used to derive the 700 million acres of federal minerals that BLM is responsible for, and the 165 million acres which are off limits to minerals development, are documented in this report. Both numbers have been used in the BLM Strategic Plan, 2000-2005 and related reports. A table at the lower right corner of the map shows the estimated acreage of federal minerals, federal lands, split estate federal mineral, BLM public lands and Indian trust minerals, by BLM state. Hawaii, not a BLM state, is also included because of a small amount of federal land existing in the state. These acreage figures were determined based on
Y'all know why, right? They're not included because Hawaii has all of their allodial titles, guys. They have all of their allodial titles.
Sources of published and unpublished data, see data sources below, and in coordination and cooperation with BLM state offices and other agencies. Data gathering and procedures used to validate definition. The total acres of federal minerals for which BLM is responsible is the sum of federal mineral acreage under all federal lands, public domain and acquired, and non-federal surface federal mineral, split estate, acreage. The map colors, both yellow and gray, show the total federal lands. Based on the estimate for Colorado, 1% of the total federal land in the lower 48 is assumed to have no federal mineral rights acquired with the land acquisitions. However, only about 0.6% is used for the entire nation, since Alaska, representing 36% of the nation's federal land, has very little acquired land. The Indian lands shown in orange color are reservations at least 23,000 acres in size, not all Indian TMST lands. Private lands scattered within the reservations are not shown but are excluded from the acreage determination. The Osage, by law, manage their own minerals and therefore this acreage is not included in the Indian mineral acreage.
They manage their own. They weren't under the
lands
statehood.
Associated with Indian group, i.e. 5 civilized tribes which no longer have reservations.
Say that part, sis.
However,
that
the acreage of these TMST lands is included. Based on these definitions, the total federal minerals have been estimated as approximately 700 million acres and Indian minerals as about 56 million acres. These estimates should be a good approximation for next 10 years unless large-scale changes occur. Data sources: federal lands, BLM public land statistics, current table 1-3, comparison of federally owned land with total acreage of states, compiled by U.S. General Services Administration, GSA. Non-federal surface federal minerals lands, BLM public land statistics, current table 3-2, by BLM, and an independent source reported by Andrew Senti, Realty Specialist of Colorado BLM. Public lands, BLM Public Land Statistics, Table 1-4, Public Lands under exclusive jurisdiction of the Bureau of Land Management, compiled by BLM. Federal mineral acreage by BLM State, Public Rewards from Public Lands 1999, BLM.
Do y'all see how they even play in y'all face? I want to say something about this when it comes to the BLM. When y'all see BLM, what's the first thing y'all think they're talking about? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Right? Because the black lives that matter is keeping you what? Dead in your mind. Being a black, having a black life. Black lives matter. Right? Living black, which is dead in law. Black lives matter. They want you to be black. Black lives matter. Throwing it in your face. Oh, another black man down. Oh, another one down in the streets. Oh, another one choked out. Oh, yeah. BLM, Black Lives Matter, keeping you dead in the mind so you don't even see what's going on with what? Propaganda, stage plays, theatrics, right? All going through Antifa and George Soros, for anyone that's not familiar, because you know George Soros was the one that was behind those organizations, right? Including Black Lives Matter. Thinking about the transgender thing that's going on right now and being pushed on our entire community and the entire world. The lesbian women that headed Black Lives Matter, right? I mean, if you just think about the circus acts that they play with y'all all the time. I told you guys that when the guy, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. After the George Floyd, the other guy happened in my city, the town that I moved from. And they literally, you could go around and see they had like bricks and stuff laying around. They was getting ready for it because they wanted people to tear up. This stuff was so plotted, it was crazy. The day before the riots, the people were putting woods on their windows. They were letting them know it was about to be a riot. Like, listen, guys, you can't make this up. You can't make it up. Let's go. Stop. We finna go on here. Let me read this so we can go on to the next page because I ain't finna do all that. The federal mineral acreage by the BLM state, the public rewards from public land 1999 BLM, personal communications, numerous contacts with the lands, minerals, and the public affair staff. All right. Now let's go to the next page because it stopped reading. I'm gonna drop the link just in case anyone has anything to say. I will drop it here and there, especially when I like input. So if anyone has to come up or would like to even make a comment on this and drop down, either or, you're definitely free to, because this is definitely some important information. I want to make sure you guys are like being in sync with what's going on here for real.
Each of the BLM states. Indian lands. Indian Land Areas Map 1992 by U.S. Geological Survey, and Larry Scribner, Chief, DIV of Real Estate Services of the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA. Validation of data. As the data were assembled from the above cited publications, I found obvious errors and significant discrepancies which needed resolution. Personal communications made to state offices were part of the effort to resolve the problems in each state. The following steps were taken to verify the data to arrive at the final national federal mineral acres presented in the map, and the mineral estate acres to be used by each state in the future. Step 1. Define the scope of BLM federal minerals responsibilities. Federal leasable minerals. According to Mineral Leasing Act of 1920 as amended, BLM has complete responsibility for leasable minerals from leasing to closure of drilling/mining. Surface management/protection responsibility largely remains the authority of the Surface Management Agency involved. In the case of coal operations, the Office of Surface Mining Reclamation and Enforcement, OSM, or the delegated state government, is responsible for environmental protection and reclamation with the concurrence of the Surface Management Agency. However, BLM is responsible for technical operations and production verification, R2P2, of federal coal resources. It should be noted that all minerals under acquired lands are leasable. Federal locatable, hard rock, minerals in accordance with the Mining Law of 1872 and the Federal Land Policy and Management Act of 1976, BLM is responsible for administration of mining claim recordation, maintenance fee collection and waiver, and validity determination/mineral patents on federal lands. However, on Forest Service, FS, and National Park Service, NPS, lands. Validity determination is carried out in accordance with MOUs between BLM and the Surface Management Agency. In addition, BLM is also responsible processing notices of intent and mining operations plans on the public land, a responsibility of the Surface Management Agency. Federal Saleable Minerals. The 1947 Materials Act authorizes sale of mineral materials from federal lands. Basically, each Surface Management Agency is responsible for the administration of sale and free use of mineral materials on their lands. Federal lands consist of public domain lands and acquired lands. The above three mineral laws apply to public domain lands as described. Generally speaking, however, hard rock minerals on acquired lands became leasable minerals under the Mineral Leasing Act for acquired lands of 1947. More details of BLM minerals responsibilities can be found in Subchapter C Minerals. Management, 3000, of Title 43, Code of Federal Regulations, the Reorganization Plan No. 3 of 1946 and 1950, and the Department's Organization Manual, 135 DM1 and Delegation Manual, 235 DM1, Appendix 1. Step 2. Comparison of federal land plus split estate land with federal mineral estate as a first approximation. The federal mineral estate acreage reported in Public Rewards 1999 by each BLM state were listed by states from Alaska to Wyoming along with federal land acres from PLS 1994 and PLS 1998 in separate columns. The split estate land acre, Appendix 2 display 8, obviously, federal, these tasks are, the public land surface acres managed by BL, these tasks are carried out in the next steps. Step 3. Reconciliation of federal land acres reported in PLS Table 1 to 3 in order to find the problem reporting of federal lands. The PLS acres 1999 through 1990 were tabulated. The public land surface acres managed by BLM were also tabulated from PLS Table 1-4 to see whether error could have been from
1990 to 99. Did they mean 1899 to 1990? I mean, I don't even know what they're talking about right there, but either way, let's go.
BLM surface acres. From Appendix 2, it is obvious that the federal land acres in Alaska were in error, which may explain the discrepancy of 94 million acres between PLS 1994
a discrepancy
and PLS
of 94 million
1998.
acres. You don't say.
Therefore, both BLM Alaska surface acres and federal land Alaska acres were also tabulated for comparison, as shown in Appendix 3.
This is just crazy.
Federal land as percent of total Alaska land was calculated for the 4 years, 1998, 1996, 1993, and 1989, shown for a quick visual assessment of area coverage of federal lands shown in various versions of Alaska map being used in BLM. As can be seen in the second column of Appendix 3, the total federal land acres from PLS 1997 and PLS 1998 were around 90 million acres lower than those of previous years and the more recent 1999 acres, which is 655 million. With persistent effort, I was finally able to contact the right person in GSA, Ms. Carol Annadale, to answer the related questions. Her Management, 3000, of Title 43, Code of Federal Regulations, the Reorganization Plan No. 3 of 1946 and 1950, and the Department's Organization Manual, 135 DM1 and Delegation Manual, 235 DM1, Appendix 1. Step 2. Comparison of federal land plus split estate land with federal mineral estate as a first approximation.
Just so organized with the
federal mineral estate acreage reported in Public Rewards 1999 by each BLM state were listed by states from Alaska to Wyoming along with federal land acres from PLS 1994 and PLS 1998 in separate columns. The split estate land acres of about 69.9 million acres were allocated to each state according to the percentage calculated based on the state acres available through 1948, PLS Table 3-2. Another column of federal land acres by state was then obtained by subtracting the split estate acres from the total federal mineral acres reported in the Public Rewards 1999. Appendix 2 displays these data
I
in a
really just
table
wanted
form.
y'all to see
The bottom line
the
of the
amount
table
of
shows
land.
the total federal mineral acres from public rewards
I don't even want to finish
1999 as
reading that.
674. 8 million acres. Assuming that the split estate land of 69.9 million acres, the federal land is 605.3 million acres compared with the 1994 PLS figure of 657.3 million acres and 1998 PLS figure of only 563.1 million acres. Obviously, federal land acres need a careful scrutiny, and both the split estate acres and the federal mineral acres reported by states in the public rewards must be verified.
Public rewards
These
must be
tasks are
verified.
carried out in the next steps.
Yeah, do y'all like who's really understanding this, the depth of this craziness that these people just continue to perform on us, and nobody understands why I get so upset, and why I keep trying to tell my people, y'all got to get yourself in order. Why I keep telling y'all come on now, let's take over, let's do what we need to do when it comes to your affairs, because you can't keep letting idiots handle it, especially when they don't have no authority. Let's go. Now I want y'all to see. Now I kind of showed you what was going on. We're looking at the people moving in. This is a timeline for people that's new to this information. I'm not talking to you guys that's been around, but for anyone that's new, you guys show how you guys seen how they were bringing the people in, right? The miscegenation of all these people. This is how all this started, bringing these natives in. Not to mention them being able to start the officiated tribes with 50 people and a church member, a teacher, and a doctor, basically, having that trinity, creating a fake tribe. Now we've shown you all of the land, right? Anybody that's in the back that don't hear too good, I'm going to say it again. We showed y'all all the land, the mineral rights, all of this. That was all Indian rights, Indian land, Indian rights. Everything's about the damn Indian, even though people think it don't mean nothing and it don't make sense. But, hey, sis, hold on 1 second, okay? Yeah, people think that it don't make sense, right? But yeah, it makes plenty of sense to anybody that has common sense, right? We got to know how to use common sense. This one's very important, guys. So pay attention. Here we go. We're talking about the individual Indian monies. Let's go.
Regulations governing the handling of individual Indian money. General. 1. Individual Indian monies are funds, regardless of derivation, which belong to individual Indians, and which come definition of term. MTO the custody of a disbursing officer. 2. Requests for authority to approve checks of Indians who have individual Indian money deposited to their credit dati. S for Osnagi Mata upon Form 5 to 139, in duplicate, carefully prepared for approval by the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, except that the date of approval and the number are to be left blank. All requests for authority must show clearly the necessity for the expenditure proposed, and, where it is proposed to pay direct to depositor for his unrestricted use, the competency of the depositor to handle the amount requested. 3. At the end of the calendar year in which an authority has been granted, the authority lapses, except that when carried lapse of authority approved during October, November, or December, it will remain effective during the following calendar year unless otherwise indicated. 4. Monthly pensions payable from principal shall not be allowed except in cases of absolute necessity. The old and the sick must, of course, not only be cared for, but everything must be done to restore the sick to health, and in cases of chronic illness, to brine, about the best practicable live. The sick and CD ** conditions, and in the case of the aged, to see that they get some real comfort and happiness out of their money. The requests for a monthly pension or a monthly allowance to cover the above cases should be submitted to the Indian office in the usual way, accompanied by a thorough justification. 5. Indians who are not incapacitated on account of age or physical or mental infirmity need to acquire practical business *splurance. Busy experience of their own, and everything possible should be done in handling their funds to encourage them to become independent members of the community. With this end in view, such Indians, when conscientiously endeavoring to support themselves, should be given frequently a part of their funds to handle themselves, and on the showing they make with this amount.
Who funds they talking
may be
about?
based further allowances for them to use, either with or without supervision. As fast as individual Indians give
I thought they
justification.
were Indian funds, right? I thought they were Indian funds, right? I thought they were Indian funds. So why is it none of the Indians ain't getting the funds? Only the ones that say, "Hey, I'm going to go under the governmental sanctity and wardship by signing an application to get with you." Yes, then I'll be able to, go up under that, and I can get a funding because now I can get an allotment each year, 120,000, 135,000 here. This tribe might give 80,000, all depending on what their allotments are. But it's not your people that's getting it. But all these funds that have been set up, all the money goes to who? They what? Indian rights, Indian minerals, Indian land. All of this is under the Indian trust. But only these people are benefiting. I don't understand. Why is it that these are the only people that we see that are getting the funding, and they're saying that they are under the Indian tribes? They're listed as Indian tribe, but they're natives. They said they're natives. But they have to be listed as Indian in order to get the funding. They have to be listed as an Indian, but they are natives. Look, a confederated tribe and band, confederated Navajo. Y'all see? You see? Where are the Indians? Donald Trump even said he didn't see any Indians. Where are the Indians? I don't see any Indians either. Where are the Indians? Where are the Indians, guys? Blackfeet, Pasqua, Blackfeet. Who are these people? Who are these imposters? Right? Who are these imposters? Who are they? Y'all see this? Y'all see this? Y'all see it. There's so many. I don't understand it. I don't understand it.
For such action by showing their actual business capacity asterisk WH degree SH degree WA carat
They
degree
took our
carat,
money.
their monies should be turned over to them for their own use.
It's all of the Indian trust funds that are all under our ancestors' names that are tied into these trusts, because when they went into the treaties and they turned the gold and stuff over, that allowed them to have the control over everything. They thought they were making it easier. They were kind of forced into it. Some of them, they didn't want to really fight. They had been fighting so long. All these different things that could have happened. We don't know. We could just go by the stories we see and what we read. So from what we can tell by everything that we've understood, they brought these people in to misplace you or displace you after they had cured all your gold and took all of your land and moved you out. Got rid of you, moved these people in your place because, see, they can control them under statehood. Because, see, all of the sanctums and the scrolls that the Indians, the government of the tribes, what they went into when they already had government, it was already set up. See, there was a system in place already. They didn't really create the system. I think people believe that these people had the sense to create a system like this. Like, come on, make it make sense. They didn't have the system set up. We had the system already set up. So they came in and started blending, miscegenation, moving in, blending with the tribes, coming in. Oh, yeah, sure. We can give you guys a few plots of land over here. You want to bring some people in and then start working and, tilling the land. We can get some workers over here to these farms that need help on their farm. This is how the indentured servants came in. So they start bringing people by the multitude, the boatload. They say, oh, they letting people come in. They bring them by the multitude and the boatloads, right? Let me explain this, guys. I'll be right back. I got to take this call. Hello? Yeah. Did it not play? I'm sorry about that, guys. Hold on.
Regulations governing the handling of individual Indian money. General. 1. Individual Indian monies are funds, regardless of derivation, which belong to individual Indians, and which come definition of term. MTO the custody of a disbursing officer. 2. Requests for authority to approve checks of Indians who have individual Indian money deposited to their credit. D. S for Osnagi Mata upon Form 5 to 139, in duplicate, carefully prepared for approval by the Commissioner of Indian Affairs, except that the date of approval and the number are to be left blank. All requests for authority must show clearly the necessity for the expenditure proposed, and, where it is proposed to pay direct to depositor for his unrestricted use, the competency of the depositor to handle the amount requested. 3. At the end of the calendar year in which an authority has been granted, the authority lapses, except that when carrot lapse of authority approved during October, November, or December, it will remain effective during the following calendar year unless otherwise indicated. 4. Monthly pensions payable from principal shall not be allowed except in cases of absolute necessity. The old and the sick must, of course, not only be cared for, but everything must be doing to restore the sick to health.
Why ain't doing it? In
cases of chronic illness, to brine about the best practicable live. The sick and as carrot CD asterisking conditions, and in the case of the aged, to see that they get some real comfort and happiness out of their money. The requests for a monthly pension or a monthly allowance to cover the above cases should be submitted to the Indian office in the usual way, accompanied by a thorough justification. 5. Indians who are not incapacitated on account of age or physical or mental infirmity need to acquire practical business nels carrots plurants. Busy experience of their own, and everything possible should be done in handling their funds to encourage them to become independent members of the community. With this end in view, such Indians, when conscientiously endeavoring to support themselves, should be given frequently a part of their funds to handle themselves, and on the showing they make with this amount, may be based further allowances for them to use, either with or without supervision. As fast as individual Indians give justification for such action by showing their actual business capacity asterisk WH degree SH degree WA carrot degree carrot their monies should be turned over to them for their own use. In accordance with this paragraph, superintendents should ask for authority, submitting full and careful statements of all relevant facts. Especially should liberality be exercised where the funds are in the nature of income, as distinguished from capital. 6. Attention of superintendents is called to the fact that one of their chief duties is to see that every Indian is well established in a permanent and substantial home built upon land to which the individual whose money is being expended may ultimately expect to obtain a fee simple title, that is to say, upon his own allotment or land, to which he has been declared sole heir by the Secretary of the Interior under the Act of June 25, 1910. 7. In order to obviate as far as possible the delays incident to transmission of separate requests of this nature to the office, the superintendent should make a careful survey of the needs of the Indians for the coming calendar year in the way of improvements, such as 1. House, 2. Barn, 3. Outhouses, 4. Cave or cellar, 5. Fences, 6. Well, and then submit to the Indian office a request for what might be termed a blanket authority to approve checks to cover purchases of whatever the survey shows to be necessary. Such an authority, when granted, will enable the superintendent to approve checks at any time during the year for sums not exceeding the amounts set forth. Checks may be approved for less amounts without modification. 8. Doctor bills and hospital bills, necessitated by unforeseen emergencies, involving danger to life and health, may be met under authority of this paragraph in amounts not greater than $50 for medical attention, or $150 for surgical and hospital treatment, for any individual. 9. All agricultural needs should be anticipated, and authority requested in a manner similar to that set forth in paragraph 7 for improvements, but unforeseen needs requiring immediate relief may be met by the superintendent without procuring prior authority, but must be immediately reported by the superintendent on Form 5 to 139. For approval. In no case shall an expenditure under this section exceed $50. 10. A. Authority is hereby granted dispersing officers handling individual Indian funds to sign and approve checks funeral expenses. 2. Against a decedent
Sorry,
S account
guys.
M sums the total
I
oi
know
which
I
shall
missed
not
something
under any
important.
circumstances exceed $150, and which shall be as much less than that amount as possible,
Yes,
for the
it
purpose
is.
of making necessary
Yes, it
arrangement
is.
and paying the actual expenses incident to funerals. B. Any dispersing officer is hereby authorized to sign and approve a check, or checks, against deposits to the credit of unapproved checks the estate of a deceased Indian, or to the credit of term 0I/heirs.
How long will people continue to disrespect the Indians? I just want to know. I don't care what the title is. How long? Wake up, people. Wake up.
F to asterisk the heir, or heirs, to said estate, in order to make the collection provided for in the following provision of the Act of June 30th, 1913, public, number 4 that hereafter, upon the determination of the heirs of a deceased Indian by the Secretary of the Interior, there shall be paid by such heirs or from the estate of such deceased Indian, or deducted from the proceeds from the sale of land of the deceased allotee or from any trust funds belonging to the estate of the decedent, the sum of $15, to cover the cost of determining the heirs to the estate of the said deceased allotee, which amount shall be accounted for and paid into the treasury of the United States, etc. These funds should be designated as miscellaneous receipts, Class I. 11. A dispersing officer at an Indian non-reservation boarding school who has in his custody monies belonging to SCO designated as individual Indian money pupils is hereby authorized to approve checks or make payments in sums not greater than $25 in any 1 month, the aggregate of checks and payments for any 1 year not to exceed $100, provided that, for general spending money, pupils shall not be paid in excess of $1 per week, which amount shall be included in the monthly maximum expenditures.
Do y'all hear this? Y'all hear this? Allowances and, all of this. I mean, it's just crazy to me. What are y'all thinking about this? Juneteenth? Yeah, Juneteenth. Yeah, definitely. It's ridiculous. How long y'all gonna just keep disrespecting the Indian? Let people just act like it means nothing when it means every damn thing. Literally means everything. If y'all don't understand that, I don't know what else to tell you. Here we go. Here we go with this. Jeez, come on.
Making necessary collection, land of the deceased allotee or from any trust funds belonging to the estate of the decedent, the sum of $15, to cover the cost of determining the heirs to the estate of the said deceased allotee, which amount shall be accounted for and paid into the treasury of the United States, etc. These funds should be designated as miscellaneous receipts, Class I. 11. A dispersing officer at an Indian non-reservation boarding school who has in his custody monies belonging to SCO designated as individual Indian money pupils is hereby authorized to approve checks or make payments in sums not greater than $25 in any 1 month, the aggregate of checks and payments for any 1 year not to exceed $100, provided that, for general spending money, pupils shall not be paid in excess of $1 per week, which amount shall be included in the monthly maximum expenditures. If a pupil is about to return home on vacation or permanently, the dispersing officer of a non-reservation school is hereby authorized to approve a check or to make a payment for a reasonable sum, not to exceed $100, provided the schedule or voucher reporting the disbursement, if in excess of $25, shows that the money is to be, or was, used to defray the expenses of going home, and for no other purpose. For expenditures other ocarat poundorids. Ditloy altran those authorized in this paragraph and paragraphs 8, 10, 12, 13, 16, 33, 34, 38, 56, and 115 to 118, inclusive, the dispersing officer must secure special authority from the Commissioner of Indian Affairs in accordance with paragraph 2. 12. During any 1 year not more than $100 of the funds of a minor may be transferred by a dispersing officer on a reservation to a dispersing officer of an Indian boarding school. 13. A dispersing officer may pay in cash to a minor or his parent, custodian, or guardian, or disperse for the benefit of a minor who is in regular attendance in a public, mission, or contract school, sums not greater than $25 in any 1 month, the aggregate of checks and pay. Ments for any 1 year not to exceed $100. No funds belonging to minors who are not in regular attendance at school shall be paid to them or their parents, custodians, or guardians, or dispersed for their benefit except under approved authority on Form 5 to 139, in accordance with paragraph 2. 14. Dispersing officers having individual Indian money in their hands belonging to runaway pupils who are not fund slow-away pupils returned to the school shall return such money to the pupils either by direct remittance or by transmission to the superintendent of the reservation where such pupils reside, for deposit in bank to the individual credit of the owner.
Minors, the
Before
minors
adopting
account.
either of these alternatives,
I keep
the
telling
superintendent
y'all.
shall report the facts to the Indian office and request instructions.
I keep telling
15.
y'all.
If it is intended that a minor's funds are to be expended by
I
parent,
keep telling
custodian, or guardian, without minors.
Y'all get it? The minor's account under the government expenditure. All debts belong to the United States because why? They are the governor and they are governing your expenses. All debts belong to the United States ever since 1933 Banking Act because why? They are the wardship. You under wardship. Your wardship goes back to the state with your birth certificate, right? And the registration number that's on your birth certificate. This is how they tie into the trust, right? This is how you're helping to fund these criminal organizations. How are you helping to fund them, you ask? You're helping them because you're allowing them to go into your trust every time you go and you sign an application and give them your information. It's all a game, guys. I want you to hear that part again. Let's go back just to this
Dispersing
part right
officers having individual Indian money in their hands belonging to runaway pupils who are not fund slow-away pupils returned to the school shall return such money to the pupils either by direct remittance or by transmission to the superintendent of the reservation where such pupils reside, for deposit in bank to the individual credit of the owner. Before adopting either of these alternatives, the superintendent shall report the facts to the Indian office and request instructions. 15. If it is intended that a minor's funds are to be expended by parent, custodian, or guardian, without minor's funds to be expended by par supervision, a statement must be made concerning the report on exercise manner in which the parent, custodian, etc., has in the of former privileges. Past used monies placed in NIS hands toward unrestricted expenditure.
Who is the parent? The papa, the daddy, the papa, right? The one who has the control and sanctity over you, the governance, right? That's the parent. And until you're in your correct adult mind and you're not black or a minority, will you be able to understand that and know how to walk and stand in your truth because you understand law.
16. Any dispersing officer is hereby authorized to sign and approve checks transferring funds of an Indian who lives Tefuni trademark 710 trans permanently away from his jurisdiction to the dispersing officer nearest to whom the Indian resides. He may make the transfer before or after the funds are deposited in bank to the owner's credit. 17. From funds under the jurisdiction of the United States, including individual Indian monies, debts of Indians will payment of debts. Degree. Not be paid, except funeral expenses, as provided in paragraph 10. 18. Persons who extend credit to Indians do so at their own risk. Traders to do all Indians should be urged to pay any of their justness on cash basis. J. Legitimate debts as far as they may be able. 19. A dispersing officer has no authority to exercise personal sees any supervision over personal funds which an Indian has deposited in bank to his own credit. 20. If an Indian's place of residence is such that an approved but unsigned check cannot be presented to him by and where employees #, of the Indian Service employee of the Indian Service, the check may, with cannot be used. Proper instructions writing, be sent to any reliable officer or employee of the United States, including postmasters, whose post of duty is such that he will be able to obtain the Indian's signature.
To
But in
obtain
sending a
what?
check in accordance with this check 0 so asterisk sent. Degree F paragraph.
Listen.
Proper instructions am writing. United States, including postmasters, whose post of duty is such that he will be able to obtain the Indian signature. He must obtain, gain, get. In order to get this, he needs the Indian signature, which is the autograph, which is worth its what? Weight in gold, which authorizes credit through the funding that is set up for Indian trust, such that he will be able to obtain the Indian signature. But in sending a check in accordance with this check 0 so asterisk sent. Degree F paragraph. The disbursing officer must endorse on the face not good until signed by, inserting Indian's name, in writing, or by thumb mark, witnessed by two reputable persons who can write, together with the addresses and occupations of such witnesses. CPAR 26. Whenever an officer entrusts an approved but unsigned check to A and B person under stub record of asterisk T, and it check approved by this paragraph, he must indicate on the stub or check for signature. Asterisk. Register the person to whom he int or stated.
It's so
21
sad
before an officer permits any approved check, PR, VEDR check EAP signed or unsigned by the maker, to leave its possession, he must charge it to the maker upon the records of his office.
Wow.
22 If a check is drawn payable to an Indian, the instructions to INIT% Dion's about manner disbursing officer or the person delivering it shall of endorsement. Iti, I-111 mistruck the Indian how to endorse the check. 23 Disbursing officers must keep a file of all unused authorities, and a separate file of authorities which have been thorniest unused or expended.
This is so infuriating to me.
When a check is drawn under an authority, the amount of the check is to be entered upon the authority under the column of expenditures. When the whole amount of an authority has been expended, authorities expended TNE authority will be transferred to the file for expended authorities. Method of citing 24 IN citing authorities bearing 2 or more serial authorities. Numbers only the number appearing last need be stated. 25 For expenditures under paragraph 9, for which specific authority has not been received at the time the account covering the transaction is submitted, the citation of authority should be paragraph 9, authority requested, 191-. Exception will be taken by the office to all such disbursements, but upon citation of the proper authority in answer thereto will be removed. 26 Every Indian who cannot write his name is required to sign all checks, receipts, and other documents, except NADU, E1S1. B. Mark SLG sub-vouchers for traveling expenses.
This is crazy.
Bills of lading for Indian
Do y'all
freighters.
believe this?
Vouchers for open market
trying to
purchases
tell
from
y'all,
Indians
people
when
think it
not
ain't
paid
important.
in cash.
Oh, it's
and vouchers
important, all
to
right.
abstract deed
It's
to
important.
property accounts, by making an imprint of the ball of his
You're
right
important.
thumb, or
You're
of the left if
everything.
he has lost the right, after his name.
You are everything.
This imprint must be clear and distinct, showing the central whorl and striations, and such marks must be witnessed by 2 witnesses to thumb mark signa reputable persons who can write their names, whose signatures are to be followed by their addresses and their occupations. In the accepted cases, signature may be by X mark and 1 witness. Whenever possible, one of the witnesses must be an employee of the United States or a member of NES, SERS as with asterisk any Indians tribe, but a disbursing officer who approves a check is not to be a witness to the thumb mark of the drawer of the check. 27 Before any written signature or thumb mark is recognized by a disbursing officer as the signature of an Indian, such records of signa, asterisk R1. Degree 7 tours and thumb Indian shall
What's the difference in our thumbprint and someone else's? How can they tell the difference with an Indian thumbprint? You hear this?
Made his written signature or his thumb mark signature for record, Form 5 to 416, at a time when the Indian is beyond any doubt identified. Such signature shall be witnessed and certified, giving date, by the disbursing officer, additional farmer, or other employee in the Indian service who is personally acquainted with the Indian, or shall be sworn to before any officer authorized by law to administer oaths. 28. If a depositor, because of legal disability,
A
e.g.
depositor.
insanity, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
cannot give a proper acquittance, or for physical son you other percent han p durations cannot sign or place a thumb mark for hin checks. T0 sign.
Let's get to this next document. I want y'all to really just understand this. I think it's best when I show multiple documents so you guys can really see the depth of this and know that this documentation is documented all over the place. It's just all in your face. They don't care because they just doing what they want because they know, hey, they too stupid and dumb. They ain't gonna do nothing. What they gonna do? They don't even know who the heck they is. They want to keep arguing about who they is. They want to debate with each other about who belongs here and who don't, instead of worrying about what's theirs and how to handle it. It's real crazy.
Contents page digest chapter introduction 1 significance of Indian natural resources 1 basic responsibilities and objectives for managing Indian natural resources 1 opportunities to improve management of natural resources 4 potential for increasing productivity of Indian natural resources 4 management of Indian forest land 6 size and importance of Indian timber resources 6 forest management objectives 7 predicted timber shortage 8 opportunities for increased production 9 actual harvest below allowable harvest level 10 effectiveness of the Precommercial thinning and reforestation programs could be improved 12 commercial thinning not being performed 19 more dead and dying timber could be harvested 22 need for additional forestry staff 24
they want to get everything dying timber
conclusions 26 recommendations to the Secretary of the Interior 27 agency comments and our evaluation limited use of Bureau page Cone Ions 46 recommendations to the Secretary of the Interior 46 agency comments and our evaluation 47 5 management OE Indian croplands 48 Indian croplands in perspective 48 cropland management objectives 49 need to develop an irrigation the Interior 52 agency comments.
Okay, we're going to go
backlog
past
of forest management work. Develop salvage period tier sheet upon removal that provide for range develop lack of personnel to ch 6 the results of our review introduction lack of personnel to provide tribes necessary technical assistance and advice conflict of tribal or individual introduction at the request of the committee chairman. We have reviewed the management of natural resources on selected Indian reservations. This report presents the results of our review of the 3 major renewable resources on Indian reservations: timber, range, and croplands. Our review included activities on 11 major reservations. See scope. Ch. 6. The results of our review of the management of coal, oil, and gas resources. Resources will be covered in a separate report.
All that
significance of Indian natural
not
resources.
To the gold,
the Indians'
silver,
natural
and the
resources are located on over 200 reservations in 26 states and encompass 52.5 million acres. About 129 reservations have Indian populations of at least 200 and land of at least 1,000 acres. Indian lands include 5.3 million acres of commercial forest land, which is about 1% of the nation's commercial forest land.
Chat is. Nobody know how important this is, guys. They don't care.
Or 1.5% of the nation's total.
Appreciate you.
44 million acres of rangeland, or about 5% of the nation's total.
I got the real ones in the chat.
2.7 million acres of cropland, or less than 1% of the nation's total.
Y'all know.
According to the 1970 census, about 827,000 Indians lived in the United States. In 1973, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Department of the Interior, estimated that 543,000 Indians were living on or near reservations. The reservation resources provide considerable income and employment to tribes and individual Indians. Basic responsibilities and objectives for managing Indian natural resources. The federal government has, by congressional acts and subsequent judicial decisions, assumed an obligation to aid those Indians with whom it has established a special relationship. The government, through the Bureau, provides many services to these people, primarily working with Indian people and other agencies to develop programs that will lead to Indian economic self-sufficiency, advising Indian landowners how they can make the most of their resources, exercising trust responsibility for Indian lands, The basic objectives for managing timber and
Period.
rangelands are specified in the Indian Reorganization Act of 1934, 25 USC 466, which states that the Secretary of the Interior is directed to make rules and regulations for the operation and management of Indian forestry units on the principle of
don't it piss you off,
sustained
Chief?
yield management, to restrict the number of livestock grazed on Indian range units to the estimated carrying capacity of such ranges, and to promulgate such other rules and regulations as may be necessary to protect the range from deterioration, to prevent soil erosion, to assure full utilization of the range, and like purposes. In managing the Indian forest and rangeland, the Bureau has the overall objectives of 1. Preserving the land in a perpetually productive state to ensure continuous production of timber and forage. 2. Developing the resources to provide income and employment for Indians. 3. Regulating water runoff and minimizing soil erosion. And 4. Preserving and developing other values, such as wildlife and recreation. The basic authority to help Indians manage their cropland is provided for in several conservation and irrigation acts. The Bureau's overall objectives are to conserve, restore, and improve the land and help the Indians receive fair returns from using or renting their lands. In carrying out these objectives, the Bureau's activities include 1. Providing for the construction, operation, and maintenance of irrigation projects. 2. Giving technical assistance to Indian farmers, and 3. Assisting Indian landowners in leasing their farmland for the highest economic return consistent with prudent management and conservation practices. Within the Bureau, management of timber, range, and cropland is decentralized.
People crazy.
Area directors and agency superintendents share responsibility for carrying out the Bureau's programs. Most of the personnel are located in the agency offices, which are usually on the Indian reservations. These people have the immediate responsibility for managing the natural resources. They receive technical support and policy guidance from the area offices and Bureau headquarters. The land belongs to the Indian people. Therefore, rather than strictly imposing its resource management principles and requirements on the individual Indians and tribes, the Bureau strives to get voluntary acceptance of sound resource management through such means as education and technical assistance. The importance of voluntary acceptance has been re-emphasized recently in the Bureau's self-determination policy. The Secretary of the Interior recently established a task force to develop a definition of Indian self-determination for the Bureau's programs and provide for its application in federal agencies by May 1975. Although a definition had not been finalized at the time of our review, the policy of self-determination can be tentatively defined as a lessening of the Bureau's paternalism to the tribes and the operation of their programs. However, this new emphasis on self-determination in the management of Indian timber, range, and cropland must not ignore the trustee relationship that exists between the Bureau and the tribes in the management of natural resources. According to preliminary task force determinations, this relationship requires that any actions taken regarding the natural resources must have the mutual consent of the Bureau and the tribe. Opportunities to improve management of natural resources. Indian timber, range, and croplands are valuable resources that provide Indian tribes and individual Indians with considerable income and job opportunities. The annual receipts from timber harvested from 1969 to 1973 have ranged between $22.50 million and $70 million. Indian ranchers use about 90% of the rangeland. In 1973, Indian ranching operations accounted for livestock products valued at $64.30 million. In addition, rangeland grazing permits resulted in revenue of about $5.70 million. During 1973, Indian cropland produced farm products valued at $259 million and about $20 million of rental income. Major opportunities exist, however, to improve the management of these resources to increase the benefits to Indian people and to help meet the nation's long-term needs for food and fiber. Potential for increasing productivity of Indian natural resources. Timber production could be improved by 1. Increasing the timber harvest on Indian forest lands where the allowable harvest volume is not being achieved, and 2. Initiating or increasing certain forest management practices, including pre-commercial thinning and reforestation, commercial thinning, and harvesting of scattered dead and dying timber. The condition and productivity of the Indian rangeland could be improved by 1. Reducing overgrazing, 2. Installing and enforcing grazing permit systems, 3. Maintaining and effectively using range improvements, and 4. Educating cattle owners to good range management practices. The Bureau's assistance to Indians in managing their croplands could be improved by 1. Planning and implementing irrigation management services to improve efficiency of water use on Indian irrigation projects, and 2. Developing lease procedures and terms to ensure that Indians do not forego rental income for improvements made by renters and financed by federal grants. The management of Indian natural resources has been hindered by limited Bureau and tribe planning on how resources will be developed on a long-term basis. Some timber management planning has been done, but it has not included important intensive forest management practices that could increase the productivity of Indian forests. Planning for rangeland development and irrigation management on croplands has also been limited or non-existent. Lack of personnel to give the tribes necessary technical assistance and advice. This has been a problem in both the timber and range programs. Conflict of tribal or individual Indian desires with accepted resource management practices. This has been more of a problem with rangeland than with timberland. When conflicts arise, the Bureau is placed in the rather awkward position of attempting to fulfill its legal trust responsibility and at the same time support the concept of Indian self-determination.
Legal trust responsibility to Indians. Just because they made you be disconnected from who you are doesn't mean they don't still owe you the responsibility because it's all yours. Doesn't mean that if you have your capable mind that you can control your own responsibilities in this, right? They don't have to be a ward. You can be the ward of your own self and your own estate. Look at that. Why did this is so weird when it does this.
The management of irrigation conflict of tribal or individual Indian desires with accepted resource management practices. This has been more of a problem with rangeland than with timberland. When conflicts arise, the Bureau is placed in the rather awkward position of attempting to fulfill its legal trust responsibility and at the same time support the concept of Indian self-determination. There are no simple or easy answers to resolving the conflict between the Bureau's trust responsibility and the concept of self-determination. The Bureau has 2 study groups working on aspects of this problem. In addition, the Congress, in January 1975, established the American Indian Policy Review Commission to study the legal history of the federal government's relationships with the Indians to determine the attributes of the unique relationship between the government and tribes and the land and other resources they possess. Review the policies, practices, and structure of the federal agencies charged with protecting Indian resources and providing services to Indians. Recommend to the Congress changes in existing laws, policies, and practices. The Commission is expected to complete its work in 1977. Detailed discussions and recommendations on the Bureau's management of Indian timber, range, and cropland resources are included in chapters 3, 4, and 5. Management of Indian forest land. On many Indian reservations, timber is the mainstay of the economy and produces more jobs and income than any other resource or industry. Opportunities exist for accelerating the growth and harvest of timber on Indian forest lands. This increased production could make more jobs available to Indians and could increase tribal income. It could also help reduce projected national timber shortages. Size and importance of Indian timber resources. Indians own about 5 million acres of commercially forested lands on their reservations.
Wow, you hear that?
The standing timber inventory of 38 billion board feet on these Indian forests is about 1-0.5% of the U.S. total. A comparison between the Indians' forest resource and that of federal agencies and all forest land in the nation as of 1970 and the harvest for that year is shown below.
So real quick, somebody was saying they don't got pipelines there. They really don't have too much of anything. Let's look at this real quick. I want to show y'all something. We ain't gonna watch this whole thing, but I'm definitely want y'all to check this out. Let's see. Look, this how they living, y'all. Let me. Hold on. There we go. All right. Just watch. Mm. I don't know why that is real crazy. I don't know why it's
government.
with my thing.
So a big part of the problem is these people, now you see dirty, drunk residents wandering around. Their own people look at them with disgust. The meth has taken hold here in a big way. I'll tell you that. There's gangs and drug cartels all over the place. But take away the drugs, and it's still bad here. The medical care is subpar, and the roads in town are often in disrepair. Clearly, there's no good work. When you drive around here, you'll see everything you expect to see. Dilapidated trailers, rundown storefronts, old cars. There's beggars and thieves, and lots of drunks. There's stray dogs roaming around all over the place. There's hardly even a tree around. It's like a desert prairie, land of the lost. Most people here live in poverty. Perhaps 1 in 4 lives somewhat of a normal life. The reservation lies entirely within Todd County, which is the second poorest county in the nation. 8 of the nation's 10 poorest counties all happen to be Native American reservations.
You hear that?
The other 2 are border counties in Texas.
The poorest.
There were 10 million indigenous people here before European settlers came. Their numbers went down quite a lot after Europeans came because of war and disease. The ones that are left have faced centuries of persecution and discrimination. Almost all of them were forced onto reservations that lacked the resources needed to thrive.
Were they all forced on reservations, or were these the actors and actresses that were hired, like for the Wild West Bill show? The ones that went around that they hired and showcased to the world to say, hey, these the Indians. They had to go showing them around. They wanted everybody to think these were the Indians. This was part of the theatrics, the Wild West show, guys. So this is a part of the plot, right? It was part of the plan, right? So these people, these actresses, they had to set them up because they were their actresses and actors. They're members, they're agents of the government. They are indigenous to the United States Corp. So they work for the government. This is why they have to pay them. This is why they get a stipend out of your trust. Because they're perpetrating a fraud. Didn't we just read and it told you that the Indian had to sign for it? It didn't say nothing about a Native. It said the Indian had to sign in order for them to get the payments, right? Are you guys understanding this? I hope so. I hope I haven't lost anyone yet. Here we go.
27 before any degree. Sut 28 if a deposit T0 sign sen S or asterisk SA minor, the dispersing officer, fully explaining the circumstances, will recommend to the Commissioner of Indian Affairs that the head of the depositor's family be authorized to sign checks for the depositor, or in default of such an agent, that the dispersing officer be authorized to sign checks. The form of the signature shall always be John Doe, by Samuel EOE, agent by authority upon the page of the letter showing the account of the Indian in question. The officer shall place a reference to the authority by which another person may sign for the depositor. 29 If a dispersing officer receives authority to approve a check to be used for a specific purpose, he must not, before he no disclosure to a TIJG and dealers of amount of has secured quotations of prices or bids, disclose the extent of the authority to any dealer or other interested third person. 30 In submitting request, Form 5 to 139, for authority to approve checks for the purpose of purchasing for Indians bills of sale. WNQ are considered incompetent or improvident articles of personal property, such as horses, wagons, incompetent and
that's right. Silence is consent. Y'all keep allowing it, people. Get into it.
implements,
Let's go.
etc. Singly or M the aggregate OL a value of $50
Letting these
or
bums
more.
keep playing with
An
y'all.
officer will add an item to cover the expense of having a bill of sale in his name as vendee in his official capacity, but expressly in trust for the Indian, executed and recorded or filed in compliance with state
Listen
law.
again.
RF 30 in submitting request, Form 5 to 139, for authority to approve checks for the purpose of purchasing for Indians bills of sale. WNQ are considered incompetent or improvident articles of personal property, such as horses, wagons, incompetent and RF improvident Indians.
Why were they incompetent? Why? Do anybody know? Because they were going through the schools, right? You know, everybody that go to school, they don't always get A's and B's. Some may get C's and D's and F's. So when going to the Indian schools, learning the culture, cultivation, some of them weren't as great at these things, right? So maybe they would have been deemed incompetent with not knowing how to fulfill your job, right? When you have a job to come in and be an Indian and to cultivate the land, because this is what you were hired for, and you don't learn to do that very well, you're going to get the lower position, right? So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, if you're not fully capable, this would make you an imbecile, right? This would make you black in law and an imbecile, right? Because you don't know this entire culture. You have to have been born into this and have it literally in your cells, your DNA structure, to show you how to actually properly do this. Of course, you feel incompetent if you've been displaced from your true place of origin, brought to another place and told, hey, this is your place, but it doesn't feel like home to you, right? It feels like this is not really my home. Maybe I've migrated from another area. This culture isn't really mine. It's not in my DNA. It's not in my cellular structure. Man, this shit gets so deep. Let's go.
Etc. Singly or M the aggregate OL a value of $50 or more. An officer will add an item to cover the expense of having a bill of sale in his name as vendee in his official capacity, but expressly in trust for the Indian, executed and recorded or filed in compliance with state law. Where state laws provide for recording bills of sale, the original bill of sale will be filed permanently among the records of the officer.
Oh, there's
Where
records.
State laws provide for filing the original,
there's so many records.
A copy will be filed among the records of the officer. Bills of sale must be taken in accordance with this paragraph in all cases where authority is given to Dion O. P. Hayes SF approve a check against the funds of one Indian for another. For use by any purchase of articles, singly or in the aggregate, of a value of $50 or more, to be used by another Indian, e.g., checks upon a minor's funds for purchase of tea to be used by his father, check upon a woman's funds for purchase of implements to be used by her husband or by her male relatives. 31 If property held on a bill of sale is wrongfully in the hands of a person other than the Indian for whom it is held, the O/PRSJPFY Hetan officer will make demand for its return. In the event of refusal, he will at once notify the proper district attorney of the United States, enclosing a copy of the bill of sale and asking that proceedings appropriate for the recovery of the property be instituted.
Makes sense to me. Ain't that how you supposed to be operating? I keep telling y'all people, anybody in my class that know and understands this, anybody that's taken the course, you guys know and understand this. Verify this. This information is showing you everything that you're supposed to be doing right now with your bills of exchange. And everyone's learning that now that has taken these courses, because it's important for you to understand that you have to know this stuff too within you. It's not that easy, right? It's literally common sense, something that you're not used to using. You know, I know you've been indoctrinated your whole damn life, but it's time to break away from the shell. Like literally. I don't know what y'all thinking, but listen, we're going to get to this. How did this all start happening? Right? How did this all start happening? Let's get back to this land. I'm going to read a little bit more of this page, and then we're going to get to the next document. I'm going to show y'all some stuff that's like real crazy. Actually, I think I'm going to get to that. Let's not even do this. Hold on. Let me go here because I'm about to get out here shortly, and I want to make sure you guys Make this a little bigger. You can see this document, so I can give you a quick explanation. Now, we just talked about it, and it just showed you what was going on, how they had to put everything into, the reservation. They were going, blah, blah, blah. Now, mind you, we're not going to look at the picture. I just showed you guys on the video from what the fake Indians are doing now, the ones that are your imposters, right? We're going to show you guys the ones that were coming in, the ones that say, okay, we're going to the statehood. We keep getting pushed out. If we do this, we can get our land, get our deed, and then we can make these people pay us. We're going to go into what's going on. I'm going to show you an example. Let me see if it reads it or not. If not, I'll read it. It's loading. Okay, it may not be. It's probably trying to pick it up. It's too dark. Okay, let me just do that because I don't want to waste time. Okay, listen. I'm going to read just a few of these then. The Muskogee, this is from the Muskogee Indian Territory, October the 31st of 1903. Mr. William Burney, South McAllister Indian Territory. Dear sir, hold on. Dear sir, I don't know why this page is not going down. What is going on? Okay. It is acting crazy. Hold on. It says, dear sir, receipt is hereby acknowledged of your letter without date, asking if your wife, Lucery Burney, and children, Julia, Bertha, Jimmy Lee, Dicey, Julia, Clyde, Carrie, Edmund, Willie, Saval, Ellen, and William Burney have been enrolled and approved by the Secretary of Interior. Oh, enrolled and approved. They had to be enrolled and approved. They can enroll themselves because, see, they're not trying to get some sanctity under the state. There's so much wars going on. They've been moved or displaced from their land. They're just trying to see what's the best thing to do, Okay. In reply to your letter, you are informed that it appears from our records that William Burney and his wife, Lucretia Burney, and their children, so on and so forth, their grandchildren, Myrtle and Lonnie Brown, have been listed for enrollment in the Chickasaw Freedmen as a Chickasaw Freedmen. But their names have not yet been placed upon the schedule of Chickasaw Freedmen prepared for forwarding to the Secretary of State. If you will furnish a description of the land that you desire to select in allotment for yourself and your family, therefore they will be made upon your records and you will be notified, sir. In this event, any other person makes an application for this same land or any portion of it is basically be respectfully yours, right? November the 25th, Julia Hilliard, Alderman of Alderson, Indian Territory. Dear Madam, receipt is hereby acknowledged of your letter of November the 19th, in which you state that you have appeared before the land office for the purpose of filing of your allotment, but that you were not permitted to do so for the reason that your name was not on the rolls. Her name was not on the rolls. In reply to your letter, you are informed that it appears from our records that Julia Hilliard, daughter, and Loretta Burney has been listed for enrollment as a Chickasaw Freeman, but her name has not been placed upon the schedule of Chickasaw Freemen prepared for forwarding to the Secretary of the Interior. This sounds like a $5, don't it? What y'all think? Mr. Burney, also of Alderson, Indian Territory. In the matter of the application of enrollment, your infant children, Edward and Ellen Burney, it will be necessary for you to furnish the commission with the affidavit of the mother to the birth of each child before the same can be given further consideration. And blanks for this purpose are enclosed, and you herefore with which you are kindly requested to have properly executed and return this office with a little delay as possible. Respectfully. See, this is how they came in, guys. Some of them are coming right on in. Some of them easing their way in. Some pretending to be in. Some not really being a part of it, but they acting like they're a part of it just because they want to be a part of it. And they can give an affidavit of truth and say, hey, I'm going to claim I got 1% Indian blood. That's all they needed, right? Receipt is hereby acknowledged of your letter on December the 26th, sir. Enclosed, a letter from Alan Brown, Lutie, Indian Territory, dated December 24th, relative to the maiden name of his wife, from which the commission is able to identify her as having been listed for enrollment as a Chickasaw freedman under the name of Carrie Burney. It appears that from our records that there was received in this office an application for the enrollment of the Chickasaw, Miss Myrtle Brown, her infant daughter, Carrie Brown, in their application for enrollment as on the freedmen of Lonnie Brown, infant son of Allen and Carrie Brown, born on January the 4th of 1902. The commission being at this time unable to identify the mother as a Chickasaw freedman. Allen Brown was requested to state her full maiden name. You have to check that maiden name. And time and place of application was made for her enrollment, together with the names of the other members of her family with whom application was made at the same time, to which the satisfactory reply was ever received, right? The information obtained in a letter of Allen Brown forwarded by you has enabled the commission to identify the mother as a Chickasaw freedman, and the application for the enrollment of the Myrtle and the Lonnie Brown being complete and in proper form, and have been duly filed with the records of the commission, and have the above named children listed for enrollment as a Chickasaw freedman. So, wow, their proof didn't have to be much, maybe an affidavit, so on and so forth. So where some of these people, just by the names, we can tell that they were true. And then some of them weren't, right? Some of these people came in and just eased their way in, right? I just want you guys to show that it was easy for them to get the people to say, okay, let's just do this so, we can get some safety and we don't got to keep worrying about, all these different things going on and so on and so forth, right? It just made it a little bit easier for them. I'm going to do a little bit of this book before we get out of here, guys. This will be it, and I'll be out of here in a few minutes. I appreciate everybody that came in, looking into your truth, understanding what is important for yourself. I don't know. I really have made a loss of words with a lot that's going on in this community, and the demising of the woman, the demising of the Indian legalities, and how prominent and important it is for us having and stepping into our fortitude, and how people can continue to demise it and make it seem like it's nothing. It's just completely absurd to me, guys. It really is. So, but let's get to this.
Approved August 7, 1918. 1. These regulations, amendments thereto, and circulars pertaining to the reimbursable system must be filed in a loose leaf binder and hung on the wall or in a conspicuous place in field offices where they may be freely and frequently consulted by all persons concerned in the handling of reimbursable property, in order that the most intimate familiarity with all the requirements may be obtained. 2. The term reimbursable funds as used herein applies to appropriations such as industry among Indians, reimbursable, or with a year attached, and tribal funds used in payment for services or property intended for the purpose of encouraging industry and self-support among Indians, but not to such funds as surveying and allotting Indian reservations, reimbursable, or irrigation Indian reservations, reimbursable. 3. Reimbursable funds shall be used in the purchase of seeds, animals, machinery, tools, implements, and for such other equipment or supplies as may be necessary to enable the individual Indians or tribes of Indians who do not have available means to improve their economic conditions and attain self-support. Beneficiaries. 4. Great care must be used in selections of Indians or families to receive assistance from these funds, so that only those who are reasonably industrious and worthy, who will take proper care of the articles furnished, and who are willing and prospectively able to make repayment, shall become beneficiaries. 5. The value of property sold to individuals or families shall not exceed in the aggregate the sum of $600. 6. The following classes of persons will not be given aid from reimbursable funds except with the consent of the Co-Commissioner of Indian Affairs. A. White men married into the tribe. H. Indians known to be addicted to the use of liquor. C. Indians who will not pay their just and necessary debts when they have means to do so. 77643-18. D. Indians who are regularly employed by the government or private interests. E. Indians who do not live with or care for their families. / communities of Indians, or tribes as a whole. FF. Indians who have applied for patents in fee. H. Indians or families whose aggregate credit has once reached the sum of $600 and who have not repaid the entire amount. I. Indians who
they
have
on there
become
too,
of age.
sis, on the same road,
7.
baby.
In all cases
Blend
where
it in.
allottees indebted to the government for reimbursable property make applications for patents in fee or certificates of competency, and where field officers recommend that such Indians be given fee patents and a sufficient acreage is not retained in trust to equal in value the amount of the unliquidated reimbursable indebtedness, arrangements must be made for the settlement of such reimbursable indebtedness, or bonds with an approved surety company or 2 responsible individuals must be furnished. Reports stating clearly what arrangements to settle such accounts.
Real quick, sis, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you real quick, honey. Let's show you real quick. We're gonna get right back to that document. But I want to show you real quick. Okay? Let's look at it. Let's look at what happened. Who are these people? Who are these people?
Happy Indigenous Peoples Day. I got a story time for you. So my family was one of those families. You know, we've got this much Cherokee in our ancestry, and they had some things kind of back it up. There were like paintings or artifacts, sort of things to be like, oh, actually, no, we do. So imagine their surprise when we did an ancestry test, and none. 0, despite the glorious cheekbones, those not Indigenous. But then where did these receipts come from to say that we did have this ancestry? It was a bit more sinister than the fam was expecting. Have you heard of the Cherokee land lotteries? I hadn't, but apparently my family won one. So when the Cherokees were ousted from their land, Trail of Tears, all of that, their land was lotteried off. My family bought into the raffle and won one of these plots of land with everything that was still on it from when the family was forcibly removed. This is why we had pictures and artifacts
and recipes and everything.
Just, whitewashed into our story of, oh, this is part of our history. I mean, when they talk about appropriation, y'all, in this time of banned books and suppressing narratives that don't look good on our country, it's important that we tell our stories so that people can know the truth of what happened.
Yeah, know the truth. How about that part? See, sis, that's what happened. If you watch, look at a video I did last week, I believe. I showed you guys that the actual plots of land from Georgia, how they had the plots of land that they set up for them. They had the gold plots in Georgia. They literally had land, so much land that they had gold plots that they were giving out. They had to name the gold plots.
Were made. The numbers of
Walking
the
on
unliquidated
gold.
agreements and the amount still due under each must be submitted with each such case. 8 Indians who have received patents in fee to their lands shall not be given assistance from these funds. Purchases. 9 Reimbursable property intended to be sold to Indians under these regulations must not be asked for on annual estimates for supplies. 10 Before obligations of any kind are incurred, dispersing officers must assure themselves unencumbered allotments of applicable funds are available. If applicable funds are available, liabilities not to exceed $500 in any one case may be incurred under the general authority granted in Order No. 32, and amendments thereto, and when the amount of the contemplated expenditure exceeds $500, authority therefore must be procured from the central office. 11 When requesting allotments of funds or authorities to make expenditures, Detailed information in justification thereof must accompany each request. A proper justification should show for what purpose the allotment is required, or if authority to make purchases is requested, whether an allotment of funds is available to cover the transactions, whether the property asked for is needed for immediate use of the Indians, and the reasons why they need it. If the property is not required for the immediate use of the Indians, superintendents should indicate why the purchases are proposed at the time of submission of their requests and in advance of the need. The mere statement that it is desired to have the property on hand is not, in itself, sufficient to justify the purchase when the property is not needed for immediate use, and therefore the justification must go further and show in what way the efficiency of the service would be interfered with were the purchase made at a later time or when the need therefore arises. When the purchase of livestock is contemplated, whether for sale to individuals or for the benefit of the tribe as a whole, the justification must also show what provision has been or will be made to care for and maintain the stock. 12. To avoid duplication of work, such as results when numerous purchases are proposed for the same class of property, field officers should cause industrial canvasses of their jurisdictions to be made at appropriate tinas in order to ascertain the desires and actual needs of Indians worthy of reimbursable assistance. The needs thus ascertained should be tabulated and eliminations made of the names and needs of Indians deemed unworthy or otherwise unqualified to receive reimbursable property under these regulations, after which action, if the amount of the prospective purchase exceeds $500, the usual request for authority and justification thereof must be sent to the Central Office.
Y'all, I hope I made this clear how important Indian is. I don't know why people don't want to understand this, but I just want people to understand how important Indian is. Stating who you are, knowing what rights belong to you, knowing the rights that you have, knowing what belong to you, and how important it is. If you don't understand it, I just don't know what to say. There's nothing pseudo about being Indian. There's nothing pseudo about any of the information I provide to you guys. I know that's being said. I've heard it today. I was cursed out, told I'm teaching pseudo today. I mean, all this stuff I heard today, like really, nothing I do is pseudo. Nothing I do is show y'all nothing but facts, like literally, so you guys know the truth of life. So you can tune into it, magnetize to it, you know. And it's crazy how people think that it's not important to really understand this stuff. But, you know, I do the best I can. I love you guys. I want y'all to be aware. I want y'all to be awake. You know, those that know what they need to do, they step into it. They come to me and, you know, they get themselves situated. So all I can do is help those that want to help themselves. Those that, want to, not really see the truth and what's going on and want to continue to be black-minded or minorities under the state of being, I just can't help you. Yes, I just can't help you. Thank you, sis. I definitely am about the facts. And, you know, I want to make sure, that's why I always try to show y'all different books and different documents. It's like, listen, guys, this isn't something I'm just making up. Look, let me show y'all the timeline. Let me show, I just try to do all I can to make it as clear as possible. And I know the work is only appreciated by a few. And you few means so much, because I know that you guys are enlightened with information, and that's what's important to me. I just want y'all to be your best selves and be able to bring your families into light and understanding and walk in who you are. The more of us that are doing what we're supposed to be doing, the more we're demising these people. I don't know why people can't understand that. We really need to be on one page with the truth and the light. So until other people can shine from the inside out, there's not much we can do for them, guys. But I really, really appreciate you guys. Much love and respect to all. And you guys have a great evening, okay? Until later. Peace. I'm out.